4 minutes until showtime. 3 minutes until showtime. 2 minutes until showtime. 1 minute until showtime. 'Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, finally back from all my cruising and COVIDing or whatever, back here in New Orleans, Louisiana, to join the conversation. Just call 914-803-4131. That's 914-803-4131. Just leave your name in the chat room so I know who the person who is calling is. Also, if you can also leave your comments, questions, etc. In the chat room. And if you want to leave your comments afterwards, you could always leave your comments in the show thread here on YouTube as well. I haven't posted it on liberaldan.com yet. Don't know if I will. It's not a very well-structured show, so to speak, because of my fun after the cruise. So if you want to support the show, you can become a Liberal Dan Radio patron. In my laziness, I've yet to close down the OG stuff. So if you get to it before I do, well, then good for you. Otherwise, I'll probably be shutting it down later tonight. For the OG stuff, the other stuff will still be up there. Patreon.com/LiberalDan, or go to Patreon.liberaldan.com. You could also buy me a cider. Go to liberaldan.com, click the Buy Me Cider link, or go to buymeacoffee.com/LiberalDanRadio, or you can also Venmo me, just do friends and family. The QR code there, also Liberal Dan on Venmo. What else? Oh, there's another way. I'm doing a friend a favor. So my friend had a Pamper Chef party, and if I do a Pamper Chef party, my friend gets some extra bonuses or whatever. And the person who's running the Pamper Chef party is a little bit too high. I don't know if high strung is the word for me, but it's a little too high pressure for my likes. I don't like being as high pressure on the sales, but I get that this is what she does for a living or whatever. So if you're interested in Pampered Chef, there's the Facebook group. I'm sharing that in the chat right now. Or if you don't feel like dealing with the Facebook group and you want to just go ahead and buy via the Pampered Chef website itself, that's my specific party link for this particular party. I think you have 4 days to order or whatever. If you join in the Facebook group, I think there's chances to win prizes or stuff like that. We buy Pampered Chef stuff because a lot of their seasoning blends are safe and gluten-free for my wife. That's why we like to buy Pampered Chef stuff. And I didn't get the opportunity to buy anything for my friend's party because I was on my cruise. But I'm doing this. If I do enough for whatever, my friend gets additional bonuses or whatever. So I help my friend. You help me a little bit, I guess, if you buy something. There's no pressure. And again, Aaron, if there's no pressure, just join. Do me a favor and join the group. Even if you're not going to buy anything, just to basically say, hey, we got all these people. It might trigger something. I don't know. So I don't know how it all works. I'm just going with the flow. And I'll probably buy a couple of spices because they're gluten-free and safe for my wife. This will be the only time you probably hear me talking about Pampered Chef. So I doubt I'll hold another party, but that's Trump's line. Where is it? Let me get my mouse in the right place, because it's been a while since I've been online.
It is what it is.
Or at least it's been a while since I've been on YouTube, that is. See, Real Bill P, Jake gave Dan a puppy. That is correct. 3 dogs ago at this point, not my current dog Blanche. My last dog was Sushi, and my dog before that was Jeannie. My boss, when I was working at a restaurant downtown in New Orleans, was dating Jake the Snake Roberts, the professional wrestler. And I had no idea that it was actually Jake the Snake Roberts until I got back, and then the restaurant closed and I never got to talk to him about it. I was like, holy crap, that is Jake the Snake Roberts. So, but yes, the claim to fame for my dog 2 times removed was the fact that she was obtained. My boss and him found 2 black lab puppies on the levee, and they're all mangy and whatever, and so we took care of one of them, and she was a very cute pup. So, let's see, what else is going on the... Oh, Jake the Snake's still alive and kicking. He was having a hard go of it, but he was still up and about, I think. It was Razor Ramon, Scott Hall, that most recently died. Razor Ramon and Jake the Snake are working with Diamond Dallas Page, Diamond Dallas Page did yoga, and his yoga has helped a lot of people get into shape. I've actually considered doing it myself, and might get if I do it, I would get it cheaper because of my cousin's connection there, but we'll see. So Kimchi, 5 of you have not hit the like. Mistress Erin and will not let this stand. Wait, I thought Kimchi was the or which one's? I'm getting was Kimchi the mistress or the goddess? I don't know. You're setting up your basement studio? Oh my goodness! Does that mean that the World According to Knox might be coming back soon? No, Jeff Curry, Macho Man is not alive. Macho Man Randy Savage did pass away. So yeah. So there's that. What to talk about first? If you caught me on the week ago Tuesday Twitch, I was talking a little bit about the goings on about what happened on the cruise and the fun that I had, or most of the fun that I had. So one of the things I didn't harp on much in that one is the fact that we noticed that there were a lot of maggots, not the MAGA maggots on the cruise. I heard several people talking about not being vaccinated. I heard several people, there was one conversation I heard I thought was going to turn into those are deplorables, but the guy ended up, with a very southern drawl accent was like, well, if you do take the vaccine, if you do catch COVID, you're not going to be as sick as you might have been if you didn't take the vaccine. So that's why I took it. And I was like, wow, I guess I should not have prejudged that individual. But there was a lot of other people who were basically saying the exact opposite. I'm not taking no vaccine. What? And then we had an interesting conversation. A guy was sitting at the martini bar. Let me tell you, I had this rum cake martini at the bar. Ooh. I was so drunk one night, I woke up drunk because of how many of these rum cake martinis that I had. So we're sitting there talking to this guy, me and my wife are, and he's from Texas, and he grew up raising cattle. I guess he always had like fresh beef, whenever he wanted, yada yada yada. But then he started talking about his wife apparently works underneath Tony Fauci, and he's gotten to meet Tony Fauci, and he was talking about the ridiculousness of the people who won't get vaccinated or whatever. So I was like, so yeah, that was really interesting to just randomly get someone from Texas who supports Tony Fauci, which I guess if you were to pick a random Texan out of a hat and guess whether or not that person was going to be a supporter of Tony Fauci or not, you probably would guess that the person would not be a supporter of Fauci. But hey, we lucked out in that person. But yes, let's see. Kimchi, when I went on my cruise, vaccines were mandatory. Much higher class people, no fights at all. And see, my first cruise after COVID was required vaccination, required negative tests. But they've gotten rid of all that, and I kind of wish they hadn't. Because who knows? Because I'm fairly certain I know when I got it. I probably got it during the blackjack tournament. Because no one else in my family got COVID. Because that's we'll come back. We come out of the cruise. I'm feeling fine. We get home. We unpack. I go rest and go take a nap. Because I'm tired. And we because of all the fun that we had. Fortunately, the way we planned it, Monday was Martin Luther King Jr.'s day, so I was able to have a day off of work and not have to worry about anything, just relax. And then Tuesday I bring those kids to school, and we come home, I do some work. I'm feeling a little more meh. as the day goes on. I'm feeling a little more coughing as the day goes on, and as the Twitch stream goes on, and then I'm like, ugh. I told Aaron and Jolie in the chat, I was like, I'm probably going to go take a COVID test just in case. And let me tell you, I took the COVID test and it says check after 20 minutes. After a minute, that sumbitch line just was like, there you go, you got COVID, haha. So, and then of course after 20 minutes it was a much stronger line, but I was like, oh, crap. So then we had Henry test, we had my wife test. My son was going to test the next day at school anyway, but since Henry was up, we had him test, and they came out negative. My wife never tested positive. She's fine. My Henry I think has had 4 COVID tests, because Henry tested with us. He tested at school again. I tested him again when I tested Monday to see whether or not he was still, if he had anything, because he was feeling blah. And then he went to the doctor on Tuesday and he tested again. So he had 4 tests in a week, and all of them came back negative. So Henry absolutely does not have COVID. He just has strep throat. So he's been on antibiotics for that. And yeah. So, but yeah, I was, and several people in the Facebook group that was dedicated for our particular sailing of the Norwegian breakaway managed to also get COVID. So maybe we had our own little super spreader event. Unfortunately, that's what happens, I guess, when you have large groups of people on a boat, or on a ship, as they would say, because they're ships, not boats. I think boats carry other boats, I think. I don't know. I forget how it's ships and boats. What's the difference between? Maybe somebody in the chat can remind me. Oh, wait, is Gibson Media in the chat? Wait, let me scroll back. Go check out. Let's see. Goddess Kimchi, Her Majesty, Your Highness, Goddess of the Core. Or is that you're talking about Aaron? I'll worship all of y'all. How about that? I'll worship Kimchi, Jolie, and Aaron. Does that sound good? Kimchi, was it virgin? Did you swing pineapples? It was not virgin. We had our kids with us. You cannot bring kids on virgin cruises. I did have pineapples on my swim shorts, like I said I did the last cruise. So the rest of it, you'll just have to leave that to your imagination. If I did swing on a cruise, I wouldn't talk about it on my podcast. Even if I ever went up doing the Sex with Liberal Dan podcast, that would just be talking about sex topics, not, generally speaking, not about my personal sexcapades that I may or may not have. So anyway, Jeff Curry, I ain't getting on no boat if I can't fish off of it. Fair enough. I think it would be hard to fish off of one of those. They do have fishing excursions sometimes, though. Wait, I'm trying to find where Gibson Media said that somebody broke a law. I don't know. Did I miss it? I missed. I can't. I have to see live chat. I'm not in top chat. Some live chat. Boo. Max, Gibson Media, hello lol. Kimchi, my first honeymoon was cruise. Dad said no one gets on a boat or a plane because they always crash. Took me years to realize he meant due to wars. Nice. In June of 2020, Fauci said the grant worth remaining $370,000 was canceled because the NIH was told to cancel it and he didn't know the reason. I don't know what that means. Anyway, I don't know what that means. So maybe he'll post some more and we'll read into it or whatever. Pardon me taking some gulps again. I don't know. I'm not going to go much longer than an hour tonight because I don't want to strain my voice too much. Because even though I'm better, I'm no longer positive with COVID. I still have the lingering cough. It's still possible that going too long, my voice might strain as well. Oh, Kimchi, yes, you may worship me. Okay, there you go, deal. Let's see. I stopped putting out my pineapple banner for guests. I think Wes says as long as it's not an upside down pineapple, you're good. There was an episode of Ghosts. if you watch Ghosts on CBS, there was an episode of Ghosts um, where they bought pineapple lamps from their neighbors, and they didn't realize what he didn't realize what he was saying when he was saying how much he loved these upside down pineapple lamps, and so they invited them over for a party, and they're all looking forward for the new people in the party, and then they wrote, there you go, it's a swingers party, la di da. So it was hilarious. Definitely a fish out of water story. Let's see, Jeff Curry, I was just in the ER in ICU for heart. Told them I had all 5 boosters. They applauded that. I've only had 4 shots, I think. It started off with Novavax. Well, I guess I had 6 because I did the first round of Novavax shots and the second round of Novavax shots, which were 4 total shots, but only 2 of them were real. 2 of them were placebo because, again, they were doing a trial, and I was part of the trial. And so then they had a Novavax booster. I did that, but then they were not providing no other boosters. And my doctor basically said, go ahead and take the Pfizer. So I'm not Team Pfizer. I'm Team Pfizer Vax or Novas or whatever it is. So, see, also last week when we talked, we were talking about Kevin McCarthy's fetish of being degraded, degradation fetish, and he finally went ahead and he finally got his after the 15th try, he finally got that done right before I think we left for the cruise. Finally got that 15th. I know it was a crazy, they realized, oh, we got it done, and then everybody basically just said, okay, I'll abstain or present or whatever. And they didn't go ahead and vote for them. So therefore, McCarthy ended up getting it on the 15th vote. I was hoping it was going to last for even much longer than that. But now we got the ridiculousness of him trying to say that he doesn't want people who lack integrity on the intelligence. He wants honest people with integrity on the intelligence committee. So that's why he's not putting on supposedly the was it Swalwell and the other guy. And I'm like, well, how are you going to fill it with Republicans if you want people who are honest with integrity? Because that's just, you're not going to find enough Republicans there. There's only, I think, one Republican right now who's basically saying, I don't support this. We need to allow the people to, place their people in the committees, or else we're going to make this even more of a shit show than it already is. Yes, Santos. I call Jeff or Santos. I call him Santos Claus because he absolutely keeps giving us gifts. Him being in drag supposedly, and him being in drag. I have no personal problem with him being in drag. If he wants to dress up in drag, that's fine. It's just the fact that he's part of a political party that is going against people who dress up in drag and saying that anybody who dresses up in drag is a child molester or a groomer or what have you. So it's a Gibson Media. The risk of myocarditis or pericarditis events in people who received COVID-19 mRNA vaccines were elevated in younger populations. Well, I guess I don't fit necessarily into that until I got my booster because my vaccine was not mRNA. However, what was one of the things that young people were getting when they were getting when they caught COVID? They were getting myocarditis. So telling me that you have a risk of myocarditis for receiving the COVID vaccine or after receiving the COVID vaccine doesn't tell me anything, because there are people who are also getting myocarditis from getting COVID. So if you get myocarditis after getting the vaccine, and if you get myocarditis after getting COVID, you need to then, in order to show me, you have to show me that there is actual a connection. It's not just correlation. You have to show that it's causation, A. B, you have to show me that the myocarditis is more prevalent in people with the vaccine than with the people who catch COVID. Because if you're getting myocarditis from COVID, and if you're getting myocarditis from the vaccines, then is it? But if the people get myocarditis more from COVID, then you're getting it less from the vaccines. It's very possible that the people with vaccines are getting the myocarditis because they caught the COVID and they're getting it from the COVID, but the rest of the symptoms are not as bad. So it's not. I'm not going to say it's dishonest, because in order for it to be dishonest, you have to know both. You would have to have known already that the people who got COVID also got myocarditis. So I'm not going to say it's dishonest, but by you, Gibson Media. What I will say is that a lot of the people who are pushing this myocarditis thing with the COVID vaccines, many of them do know that other people also got myocarditis from getting COVID in the first place. And as such, that adds a much more variables into play, where it's not simply just you take the shot, you have a higher shot of myocarditis. It's what other factors came into play that gave this person myocarditis after getting the vaccine. Did they get the vaccine and then get exposed to COVID? And even though they might not have been as sick, they might have still dealt with the myocarditis from having COVID. Hard no. That information's not there. And if you can't prove that wasn't the case, then I'm not going to sit here and believe that the vaccines are causing myocarditis. I must be missing. I don't know. Let me flip it back to top chat and then back to live chat, because I must be missing a lot of. I'm missing a lot of posts, I think, from Gibson, because Kimchi is responding to things that I'm not seeing. There we go. Okay. Let's see. Severe adverse events reported in a survey by survey participants after adjusting by a factor of 2 for categorization error, 5 times more than reported by Pfizer in their phase 3 trial. Again, yeah, as Kimchi is saying, surveys are not studies. So, there are a lot of people that are saying, like they're putting information into that, what's that database of data called about, when people put in when they die or whatever, and they say, what did they have when they died? So like somebody died and they had taken the vaccine. So people are saying, oh, well, they were vaccinated and they died, so therefore the death must have been from the vaccine. Or the vaccine must have been one of the causes of the death, or made them more likely to die. But no. It's like saying, oh, somebody was in the hospital for a car wreck, but they had the vaccine, so their vaccine must have caused it. No, that's ridiculous. Now, there are people who are counted in the COVID hospitalizations who are in the hospital for non-COVID related things. Like, for example, so they always bring up the person with a motorcycle accident that also had COVID. So he's counted in the numbers. Why? He's counted in the numbers because he was treated for COVID. So they have to include that in the numbers. It doesn't mean that COVID caused the accident. Let's go ahead, take a quick break, take a commercial break. Let me take a bigger gulp of water, make a little coughing fit, maybe get it out of my system. We'll come back. 914-803-4131, 914-803-4131. This is Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.
Are you planning a trip to Disney soon? Do you want help avoiding spending mistakes and making the most of your vacation? Then check out Budgeteers.com. a new site devoted to helping you get the most mouse for your money. What kinds of tickets should you get? Is the dining plan a good deal for you? Should you stay on grounds or not? Should you buy park hoppers? Many other sites are filled with information about what other people like to do, but Budgeteers is geared to help you make the best decision for you. So check out Budgeteers.com or go to YouTube.com/Budgeteers and help make your trip the best it can be. Budgeteers.com is not a travel agency, and it is not affiliated with the Disney Corporation or any of its holdings. In a world gone mad, one progressive will do a bad movie trailer guy impression to get you to listen to his show. There's only one thing that I like better than the Liberal Dan Radio minicast. All right, Bill, that's enough of that. On the Liberal Dan Radio minicast, you will hear an honest discussion of the day's issues, with some personal bits in between. You might even hear what the other side has to say, sometimes even in their own voices. So become one of the Liberal Dan family, because family means no one gets left behind or forgotten. To hear those bad impressions and more, tune into the Liberal Dan Radio minicast. Talk from the left, that's right. And I think to myself, what a wonderful show. Yeah. If you enjoy Liberal Dan Radio, there's many ways that you can support the show. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can like me on Facebook or follow me on Twitter or TikTok. And you can become a Liberal Dan Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can get a shout out. Higher levels get the opportunity to vote on what I do next on the podcast, the minicast, or on YouTube. You can even buy commercial advertising or sponsor bits. So go to patreon.liberaldan.com and support the show today.
Hey there, podcast listeners. This is Demonox, host of The World According to Knox. It's time for Season 2, where I take you on another trip through my world. The world of movies, video games, pop culture, and more. Relate them to the world around you. Don't forget to leave a question for Marscat, and find me on Twitter by the handle XDemonox. That's letter X like X-Men, DEMINOX. Now enjoy the rest of your podcast.
Apologies for those listening on Blog Talk Radio, because I forgot to mute that during my coughing fit. So if you're listening to the Blog Talk Radio version of the show instead of the YouTube version of the show, you just got a very loud coughing fit. So my apologies to y'all. I forgot to mute you. I did mute the feed going to the YouTube stream, though, so it's always better to watch on the YouTube stream. There's more fun people on the chat there anyway. Somebody, let's see, so Tim, as I said in the chat, brought up the VAERS database is what I was thinking about, of the people who, you know, reporting of deaths and the people who died, and they say whether or not they were vaccinated or not, but that doesn't mean that they died from the vaccine, and that's a big problem that a lot of conservative people have, like Jeff Crouere, the guy that I often talk about, the guy that Hal has talked about once at least. He makes the thing where if somebody dies, it's always, was that person vaccinated? So like there was a carjacking here. It was terrible. Woman died. 4 kids. Miserable. I hope the kids get sent. I mean, older teenagers, I hope they get punished for a very long time. That being said, I called into the show and I was like, do we know if the person who was carjacked, was she vaccinated, Jeff? Maybe did it have anything to do with her dying? And obviously not, but that's how ridiculous a lot of them sound when it comes to using that VAERS data and using the other, trying to confuse correlation and causation. So let's see. My rock singer's uncle's brother's balls swelled up after the jab. It was not an STD, no way. Nice. Let's see. Somebody brought up, was it Bill that brought up the ovens too, or the stoves? Yeah, because there was that one thing that I did want to talk about that. So thank you for reminding me of the stove thing. The CDC comes out and says, well, we might want to stop the construction or the sale of new gas stoves. And that's a might, not are we are going to do this, but we might want to do this because there's data showing that kids that grew up in houses with gas stoves, especially houses with gas stoves that have not enough ventilation, show breathing problems. So therefore, it might be better to not have gas stoves in houses, especially if they're not well ventilated. So, of course, the conservatives ran with this, like, oh, they'll take their stove from when they pry it from my cold dead hands and whatever, and they're not going to take my stoves, and if nobody's taking a stove. Nobody in that press release or that announcement or whatever said we're gonna to say that everybody who has a gas stove has to get rid of it. They were just going to say about new gas stoves and whether or not they would allow the sale of new gas stoves, or maybe it would go from no sales of gas stoves to you could only get a gas stove if you have good ventilation to make sure that the fumes are sucked up into the vent and not spread around the house to harm your kids. And of course, the people that are supposedly pro-life, protect the kids, blah, 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 have a problem with this. But of course, they're also lying about it because they're not being honest about what's being said by the FDA or by the CDC or whoever was brought it up, or the EPA or whatever three initial organization brought it up. They didn't say as far as but the conservatives are going to say take one thing and say, oh, well, they're coming after our gas stoves now. Oh no, the horror. So you can bet that people are hoarding stoves and they just buy commercial stoves. Yeah, probably. Let's see, Jeff Curry, Biden showed up here to take my gas stove. I use electric, but Obama was with him to take my guns. Dang it. Let's see, if there's no gas line to the new buildings, they'll have to use electricity. That is also true. I don't know if the same applies to gas heat. If you have gas heat, gas dryers or whatever. My house is weird. I have a gas heater and my water heater is gas, but my dryer's not gas. My dryer's electric and my stove's electric. Go figure. The people who built this house were not very smart. We find lots of things that are like, who thought of this? My wife's comment is, a man must have designed this. That's her often this decision, because she sees something and she sees something and she'd be like, oh, that's ridiculous. A man had to have done this. And she was saying this one time, we had to get, because my mother-in-law is back in the hospital right now because they had to go refix her wound and it got reinfected again. She also got COVID from me. I feel guilty, but I think she got it from me before I tested. So I was much more careful after I knew, but by that time I think she had already gotten exposed. But so she's back in the hospital dealing with that stuff. But when she was still at her house, we wanted to make sure that the plugs were correctly, were safely put in. Our plugs aren't the best. So then we have a process of replacing all of the plugs, all of the switches in the house to make them better. And so we made sure that she had good plugs when we left. And of course, when they built the house, they didn't give enough slack for the lines. And my wife was like, of course it was a man that did it or whatever. And the guy was like taking a little bit of offense at the comments. And I was like, do you think a woman designed it? Do you think they had much women designers back in the 60s or 70s whenever this house was designed? And he was like, that's a good point. And I was like, and I mean, think about it. If you're not getting enough inches for what you need, leave it to a man to think that a small amount of inches is good enough to do the job. So, anywho, see, leftist mob trashes liberal Star Wars actor Mark Hamill for liking J.K. Rowling tweet questioning trans person. I don't know which tweet that was. J.K. Rowling is a horrible person. Regardless of, I've never liked Harry Potter to begin with beforehand. I never got into it. Supporting J.K. Rowling is supporting her views, and there are other good fantasy writers who write about mystical things who you can get. Although it's funny, because the same people that are trying to defend J.K. Rowling now for her current views are the same people that were defending J.K. Rowling for her views now are the people that were typically attacking J.K. Rowling because her books were about witchcraft, and that's Satan. It's Satanists. Satanism stuff with witchcraft and wizards and magic. But now they're getting her back because she's a TERF. So, what do you, what I know I switched from one topic to another real quick. What are you laughing at, Aaron? Nick Rich, lefties are sexy. Well, of course we are. I watched Return of the Jedi the other day. The scene where Skywalker met Yoda made me wish I was stoned. Skywalker met Yoda in an Empire Strikes Back. Thank you very much. I will not have this blasphemy on my show. You shall not spread the false word of the Jedi. Luke Skywalker met him in Empire Strikes Back, not Return of the Jedi. It was after he left Hoth. They flew to the Dagobah system to go meet Yoda. Jeff Curry, oh yeah, my bad. Yeah. Sorry. I just had to be all preachy. Do not blaspheme the Lucas on my show. Let's see. Amazing imagination on that girl. Who? On J.K. Rowling? All J.K. Rowling did was rewrite Star Wars. That's all she did. You have an orphan kid who is being, living away with his aunt and uncle, who were trying to hide the real truth from him about where he really came from, and that he had some sort of mystical power. They were hiding the fact that he had some sort of mystical power from him. So then some old haggard dude comes along and introduces him to another wizard, who explains to him, teaches him all about the mystical way of the Force, and the what else? There's a strange tension between him and his female friend, but the woman, she'll lovingly love her like a sister, but she'll fall for the plucky comic relief type guy. So, yeah, Harry Potter is Star Wars. Old haggard dude. I guess Hagrid is a haggard dude. But yeah, Hagrid, and I guess it's Hagrid. All right, I'm not getting that totally right. I don't know. Ron was a hero, right? So was Ron. Was it Weasley? Again, I only watched one of the movies. Ron Weasley, and then Han Solo was a hero too, right? Then Hagrid is the Obi-Wan. So yeah. Was that before or after Santos fought Darth Vader? I think after. So yeah. So it's always a fun little line to throw out there to basically say that Rowling wasn't creative, that she just rewrote Star Wars. Just like kind of how the whatchamacallit, the 50 Shades of Grey series is basically Twilight fan fiction. Actually, that really started like that. It started as Twilight fan fiction, but she couldn't come out with that and write that commercially, so she turned it into something else. Yes, J.R.R. Tolkien. So the guy on my job that's in charge with Back to the Future, Smokey, and hold on. The The guy on my job that's in charge of all the power chords is nicknamed Chord Vader. Nice. Star Wars, one of the most great trilogies, still they made more. I ranked up there with Back to the Future, Smokey the Men, and the Porky's. I loved Back to the Future. I actually almost wore my Back to the Future shirt tonight. I wore my Star Wars shirt tonight, which is funny that we ended up talking about Star Wars and not even remembering that I wore my Star Wars shirt tonight. See, wow, she really is a shitty. You're going to get through the first chapter of Grey. I think I saw one of the movies or whatever. Whatever, it was fine. Let's see. In the books, Ron was a hero, but Harry had to fight the final battle. Okay, I didn't know because again, I didn't read the books because I wasn't that interested in the whole thing. But again, I suggest that nobody do simply because of the fact that she's a TERF, trans exclusion, and I was thinking about doing a whole show about the TERFs, but you just have Star Wars right? Yes, I do. I was thinking about doing a show with the TERFs because I ended up on Tumblr. I don't use Tumblr much, but I fell down a Tumblr rabbit hole of TERFdom with a bunch of trans exclusionary radical feminists, the rad femmes, and as it turns out, they're the people who are radical, supposedly feminists. They're radical feminists. They call themselves rad femmes. They're also anti-sex positivity. They're anti-sex work. So sometimes they are called SWERFs as well as being called TERFs. And they some really weird thing like they go after BDSM. Like, you know, I'm not super into causing people like welts and bruises or whatever, but some people like getting bruised, some people like giving the bruises, and as long as it's consensual, I have no problem with it. Like, as Hal says, don't yuck other people's yums. As long as it's consensual yums on all sides for all parties, it's fine, whatever. But what would a flurf be, Nick? What was I going to say? Anyway, so they were trying to say, as an argument against BDSM being something you can't consent to, they said, well, if you're abused and you're choked, you're much more likely to die if your abuser chokes you than if your abuser abuses you in other ways. And I'm like, okay, fine. This is abuse. That's abuse. That's non-consented to abuse. That's not consented to sexual activity. Shut up. Like, it's irrational to try and say that if somebody is into getting choked in the bedroom, that this means that they're much more likely to die. Stop it. It's not. It's ridiculous. Yes, safe words are important, but these people don't understand. It's like the first time I got kind of shocked. I think it was in New York, and I think Pornhub opened up a sex toy shop in the middle of Times Square or somewhere in New York, and Gloria Steinem was out there and was pointing out like the handcuffs and the floggers or whatever they had there that you might use, other implements of destruction that they might use to get off in a BDSM type way. And Gloria Steinem like takes like the handcuffs and they're like, why would you want to handcuff your partner? Why would you want to do this? This is just abuse. And I was like, I thought you were a real feminist, Mrs. Steinem. I mean, I'm a guy, and I'm always in the process of learning feminism and learning how to be a better feminist because I'm a guy, and I'm always learning, and there's always the possibility that I may have missed something. But it's my understanding of feminism that you should have body autonomy, which means you should have the ability to dictate what you want to have done and what you don't want to have done to your body, which includes the idea that if somebody wants to be handcuffed or spanked or whipped or whatever, that's their right to do so if they consent to do it. And if the other person consents to do it too, or other people, who knows, whatever, none of my business, none of your business too. But I guess that's a little bit of the difference between, I guess, second wave and third wave feminism. Sometimes I described, I think I described TERFs or SWERFs or whatever, or rad femmes as take start off from a second wave feminism, take out all the feminist part about it, and then shove in a bunch of conservative bullshit, and that's when you get radical feminism, because it's not really feminism at all. Because the moment you exclude somebody from equality is the moment you fail to achieve equality. So, flurf is a great safe word. Is that John? Might be John on the phone. Hello.
Hey, how you doing? It's Joe Gibson. How are you?
Joe Gibson. I'm sorry, not John. Joe. What's going on? I didn't see what it is.
Oh, you were going to call me John Gibson. Oh. I just wanted to... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I didn't see what it was that made one of the mods delete whatever you said, but whatever. Go ahead.
It's okay. It's okay. I understand. The censorship and whatnot. But I wanted to ask you your opinion though with the latest subway attack in New York City, because we had this discussion about a month ago when I called into your show about the crime bills that the Democrats. We have 75 prosecutors elected across the country with George Soros's money, and obviously it's paying off because there's no bail reform and letting people off for felonies. I mean, the cities are totally out of control right now. But right now you have 6 felonies a day being committed in the subways of New York City with the Democratic policies. What's your comeback on that? Because I know we talked about that.
I mean, well, that's a lot of words there. I'm looking up the subway attack right now because I was unaware of that attack. So I may have to take a peek as to what happened.
It was actually a Fox News reporter that was actually attacked.
I see that, like probably a local Fox News reporter, like not like Fox News whatever, but like a Fox whatever the number is.
No, Fox News, Fox National News.
Oh, Fox National News
reporter. Yeah.
Was he attacked because he was a Fox News meteorologist, or just because he was?
I'm not sure on that, but he was attacked, and and he has to file a complaint in order for charges to be brought up against the individual because of the policies that are implemented by the mayor of New York City, and this is happening across a lot of the cities across America. Look what's going on in Atlanta, Georgia right now. The riots that are going on down there just because they want to build a police substation. You have Antifa down there attacking people, and flash mobs attacking people, and people walking out with generators out of Lowe's and Home Depots, and security guards are being told to stand down and not do anything. I mean, this is ridiculous. We just can't allow this. I mean,
don't people typically have to file a police report in order for police to take action? Like if there's no
if it's, I don't know. I mean, I would say
that's my understanding of it. Like when I wanted, I couldn't just say, hey, this person made a threat against me. I had to make a police report when a person made a threat against me in order for me to try and get any action taken against the individual for making an attack against me. And then finally because I made a police report, they then put a warrant out for the dude's arrest. So I don't know if that's necessarily odd or different from any other municipality or any, regardless of who is in control of those cities or whatever. I will bring up the fact that there's a lot of misinformation out there again about bail reform. Bail reform is not about letting violent people go free. Bail reform is about not allowing rich violent people to go free just because they're rich. That's what bail reform is supposed to be about. So yeah, maybe they let out somebody who stole a candy bar or whatever when that person might have, or if they stole enough stuff to qualify for a certain amount of theft that might normally have created a charge of bail, maybe that person gets let it go or whatever, and at the judge's discretion or according to whatever rules are set up at who's supposed to be let go and who's not supposed to be let go. But there's a lot of misinformation out there about the bail reform. We could have a whole show about that probably, but I just wanted to put that in there. Again, there are as I think we went through the amount of cities last time, of cities cities tend to be more liberal because they have more people in them and they have more concentration of people of them, and so you're going to have more amounts of crime, but a lot of there are conservative areas that per capita have more crime simply because of the fact. So it's not necessarily a liberal thing. When I worked retail for a small portion of my life, and when I was told as an employee of Radio Shack where I worked, if somebody was stealing something, was just to let them go, and they'll file an insurance claim because they didn't feel like me risking my life was worth saving the piece of property. A lot of the times there are people who will take advantage of protests. So if people are protesting, like in 2020, Black Lives Matter protests, or if whatever's going on in Atlanta now, again, I've been out of it for a good 2-3 weeks because of my having COVID after my being on a cruise. So I'm not aware of everything that's going on right now. But, if there are people who will oftentimes try and take advantage of the fact that police are busy policing, protests like from Antifa, if they're protesting a police station, other people might be like, well, the police are busy over there, so let's go steal myself some stuff over here. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's Antifa stealing the stuff. It's just other people taking advantage of the fact that there's a protest going on.
So you're going to tell me that Antifa is not instigating down there in Atlanta, Georgia? I mean, you can't deny that. I mean, Antifa is not a problem.
I'm saying that it's highly unlikely that the people who are there who are protesting the police station are not then going and robbing Home Depot for a generator. It's probably other people who are like, hey, all of these Antifa people are over here protesting this police station, so while the police are busy dealing with that, I'm going to take that opportunity to go steal a generator because I'm a bad person. I don't.
Well, this is happening all across the country, brother. I mean, come on. This is happening all across the country where they're walking into Home Depots and Lowe's, just walking out with welders and generators and whatnot, and nobody can do anything because the shoplifters won't be prosecuted in these major cities because we have 75 prosecutors plus elected by George Soros' money that funded these prosecutors to implement their policies, because it's a lot easier to have a prosecutor who makes the decision to let people go and to uproot our republic and destroy the foundations of America than to go and try to change a law or or to get entire legislators to reenact a law or legislate something. That it's a lot easier. So to have a prosecutor make a decision like they're making across the country to let people go for violent crimes, and which they are. They are. There's no doubt about it that they are. I mean, it's just I can't see anyone
letting people go for violent crimes or letting people go for theft.
Well, violent crimes. There are people being let. There's 6 felonies a day happening right now, just in New York City alone. The subway department of New York City transit department, 6 felonies a day, and they're not being prosecuted. These people are being picked up, arrested by NYPD, being booked, and then let go. And that's a shame for felony, whether it be assault, rape, anything. I couldn't believe it when I read that stuff.
Can you email me an example or somebody who was arrested for rape and then let go and not put in jail pre-trial?
I definitely will. Yeah.
I would appreciate that, because I don't know if New York City has absolutely implemented bail reform as if other cities have done. I know there are people who are pushing for it. That's not if they do have the bail reform and the elimination of cash bail. That's not how it's supposed to go. And if somebody is accused of rape, then yeah, perhaps that would, or if somebody was assaulting somebody and they were let go. Yeah, absolutely, that might be a problem. But I am.
So how do we stop the resurgence of crime? You do acknowledge that crime is up across America, right? You do acknowledge that. Crime has increased, whether it was high during Trump or whatnot, or Reagan or what have you. As of right now today, violent crime is a problem. It's a plague in our cities. You acknowledge that, right?
Violent crime is always a problem. It's always bad regardless of how much or how little it is. Let's see, violent crime data per year. I'll just bring that up and just see. Bring up the FBI statistics.
Now that's reported crime now too. That's reported crime. Now imagine the crimes that are unreported. I mean, it's out of control. From what I'm gathering and from what I'm hearing and from what I'm witnessing and seeing, from my, when I'm part of the media too, and I'm doing my podcast show, and I'm taking calls just like you, listening to people, debating with people, having discussions with people, talking to people across the country, and this is what I'm getting. And then you have the open borders. I believe that is a major part of this problem right now. What's going on is the open borders. We have no secured border.
Do we really have a less secure border now than we did under Trump, or did Trump just do things to smoke and mirrors? Because again, as I said before, on the last time I think we talked, Biden is stopping much more drugs from crossing the border than Trump ever did. And because Trump admitted that he likes to downplay things, because he likes to sugarcoat things, and he likes to make sure that the quote optics are good and make him look good, I don't think Trump would want to stop lots of drugs from coming across the border and report it, because he wouldn't want people then to be able to say, oh, well, why are all these drugs crossing the border? I think Trump would want to do things like, go after low-hanging fruit, say, oh, we're deporting all these people that were here, for 20 years and haven't done anything else but be here for 20 years and work, and play up to the people who are xenophobic in his base, than actually deal with the real issues of the people who are, coming here trying to legally ask for asylum. He tried to prevent people from legally asking asylum, which may or may not have been a violation of international law. Let's see. I'm trying to.
I don't think these people are coming over here asking to come over for illegal asylum. I believe they're crossing illegally, and the amount of detentions and arrests and detainments at the border have increased tremendously. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's catch and release. That's what they're doing. Catch and release. Okay, show up at court at this date, and they don't show up. What happens? Nothing. Nothing happens to them. They're off in America, applying for social services benefits, working under the table, landscaping, painting, doing drywall, because that's the business that are suffer the most, at least in my industry down here in the South, or working on the tobacco farms, the jobs that supposedly nobody wants, which is a total lie. And, and they're taking these jobs, siphoning the money out of the economy, and then going back, and then coming back, going back, and coming back. And this is the revolving door that we're having.
These businesses that are hiring these people for very, very, very low wages, that are lower than the wages that are allowed by law, shouldn't we be going after these businesses for hiring these people?
Of course.
If we went after the businesses that paid people illegal wages, then there would be no threat to American workers, even though unemployment is at its lowest in a very long time. There would be less of a threat to American workers, because there wouldn't be the jobs that would be there would have to pay a legal living wage. I'm not going to say that $7 an hour is a living wage, but it's better than what would be paid to somebody who is a migrant worker, who is doing the back and forth thing, who is willing to accept cash payment under the table that's less than what they're legally allowed to pay. So,
but let's secure the borders, though. Let's secure the borders and stop the people from coming over here illegally. And let's go through the legal process. We're a country of laws. We just can't allow people just to come here just because they claim asylum, which is legal, and when there's not asylum going on,
which is legal. It's legal for somebody. They have to either do it at a port of entry, or they have to do it on U.S. soil. And Trump closed off the ports of entry, so therefore the only place that they could do it was to cross the border and demand and request asylum. That's the only way to do it.
Here. Just because I'm out of work doesn't give me the right to rob a bank. So if Trump closed the ports of entry, doesn't mean they still get to come over here illegally.
No, you don't. But you don't get to come over here legally. What you do get to do is you get to cross the border and be on U.S. soil and declare asylum, and that is a legal act. That is not an illegal act. That is a legal act. That the people who are perhaps higher on the conservative media, whatevers, are out there telling people lies that this is illegal for them to do. It is absolutely legal for somebody to cross the border, touch American soil, and say, I want to request asylum in this country.
No, they have to claim asylum at the first country they go to enter into. So if someone's coming from Guatemala.
That is only the law in Europe. European law requires them to go to do the first country they enter into the EU the first country they enter, they have to declare asylum. That's a European thing. That is not an international law requirement. They don't have to stop at Guatemala or Honduras, whatever. They can go all the way through Mexico and come to America if that's where they feel that they want asylum, because they might not feel.
Why would they want to come here anyway? But let me ask you a question. Why would they want to come here anyway? We're such a racist country. Trump was such a racist, and we're so tyrannical, and the Republicans are so mean. And why would they want to come to such a racist country? I mean, you know, it just makes no sense. You know, I mean, I gotta throw that one at you. But
Trump's not president right now, so clearly it's better than it was before. So therefore, that might cause people to be more likely to want to be here, because we were smart when we voted for the last president. So.
I know one thing we did talk about last time also. I did a little research on, and we talked about the United States, a corporation, and I did look up something. The United States became a federal corporation via the Organic Act of 1871. And D.C. became its own foreign territory, as both are defined in Stoudenborough versus Hennick, and that's 28 U.S. Code 3002. So, you know, nobody was taught that the federal corporation for a reason. Obviously, you know, it's an abusive system, a controlling system, one that's been deceptive and cunning and vile for many, many years. And people have to understand these two different types of constitutions that were under the that the District of Criminals, I like to call them, and people were accusing me of being a sovereign citizen and that kind of stuff. That's not true. I'm an American citizen, and I believe in the Republic in which we were founded upon, but our country was hijacked in 1871, or actually it began in 1862, when the Congress got up from their seats and walked out and never reconvened in their seats, and therefore that abandoned the Republic. And when it was, you know, until those seats are reconvened and re-inhabited, our Republic was abandoned. Now, we did fight a civil war for many, many different reasons than what we discussed also, which was not slavery. The main reason was not slavery, but we've been taught
many of the Articles of Secession included both the statement that the state should have the so-called right to own slaves, that people should have the quote right to own slaves, and several of them even talked about the supremacy of the white race. So you may say that there were other reasons that were there, but if slavery wasn't important, it wouldn't have been included in the Articles of Secession of the several states that split.
Well, that was written in, like I said, I don't want to get too much into a debate about facts. I don't have those facts in front of me, but that's far from the truth. The slavery was not the main issue of the Civil War.
We don't care about evidence.
Sorry.
But to the corporation fact, the United States being a corporation, and you can go to, like I said, 28 United States Code 3002, and look that up, the District of Columbia, and it's important to understand, what takes precedence over the other. And you have to understand military operations, the Supreme Court, the Law of War Manual, and the Military Justice Act of 2016, paired with its pre-existing laws that show this was a military operation plan long before anyone had even heard of the fraud that's been perpetrated amongst the American people throughout many, many years of these bankers and people couldn't call me a conspiracy theorist, whatever you want to call me, but history is true. Okay, the true history that is written, and if you research it, it's still there for you to see and do your own research. And there's reasons why things happen, why they're happening today, and you're seeing the destruction of our country. The moral fabric
there are a lot of people,
though.
If I can interrupt for a second, there are a lot of people who say do your own research, who do their own research, and their research is terrible. Like seriously, there's, there are people like the guy whose audio I just played from the We Don't Care About Evidence. This is a guy who, was trying to say on a different radio show that he wants everybody to be able to vote. Like, he wants everybody nationwide to be able to vote on everything that happens in this country, and he wants to seize Facebook to do so. And I was like, that's socialism. Okay. You know that? And he was like, I don't know. That's not socialism. And I'm like, that literally is the definition of socialism. So there are people out there who do their own research who are totally incapable of doing their own research. And furthermore...
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question then. Let me ask you about Donald Trump. All right. How did Donald Trump know to sign Executive Order 13848 and to declare a national emergency to deal with the threat of election fraud a year and 10 months after the 2016 election, 2 months before the November 18th midterm, and 2 years before COVID, and the November 2020 presidential election? That's my question for you and your listeners. Can you answer that? You know, I mean, maybe you have to look some stuff up. I'll repeat it if you want me to repeat it, but answer that question.
Well, here, let me give a link. Let me give a link to that executive order in the chat because that was easy to find. So Donald Trump, there was much conversation about the 2016 election about foreign interference that took place by certain foreign actors, specifically Russia, and people can say that there was no collusion with Donald Trump and Russia, but Russia specifically asked Russia to help live on national TV. It happened. You can watch the video about Hillary's emails, and he was like, please go find the emails. He begged them to do so, and China as well. And even if there was no collusion, Trump was Russia's guy. Russia wanted Trump to be in the White House. They did not want Hillary Clinton to be in the White House. And there was evidence that they did interfere or do other things that might have swayed people's opinion on the 2016 election. So therefore...
But there's no mention of domestic, though. There's no evidence of a foreign power altering here. You know, there's no evidence of foreign power altering the outcome or vote tabulation in the United States election. No evidence of foreign power altering. It does not mention domestic. And also it says any use election, any U.S. election where it's specified in Section 8, election means any election after the date of this order, September 12th, 2018. So again, how does he know? How does this happen? You know, the wording is there. The proof is there. If you look and the timelines matter, so does the terminology inside the executive order 13848. You know, and if people just stop looking at the right versus left stuff and attacking each other over this Republican Democrat fighting, you'll find that a lot of the things that these people claim that they're conspiracy theories and whatnot are coming out to be true because we're watching America fall right before our very eyes, and people are concerned. And really, when I talk about the crime in the streets, and that's just one of the major problems we're facing. We have no law and order anymore. There's no justice. We have a broken system, and it's concerning. And,
well, I would argue that a lot if whatever increases of crime that we're seeing, whatever problems that we're having in this country, I would say part of it is because of the where the Republican Party is focused. They're not focused on fixing any of that. They don't want to fix the economy. They don't have any plans to fix the economy. They don't have any plans to fix crime. All they want to do is attack individual names, like, you know, go after people. And all they want to do is attack individual rights, like the right to, you know, have, you know, body autonomy. They want to go after, you know, we saw the writing on the wall when it came to Clarence Thomas's concurrence with Alito in the Dobbs v. Jackson ruling, that, you know, not only was abortion rights under attack, but he has no problem going after the other rulings like Loving versus Virginia and Lawrence v. Texas, Obersville v. Hodges, Griswold v. Connecticut, all of those court cases that he named in his concurrence that he also felt were found illogically or via bad rulings, even though the fact that Dobbs v. Jackson is a bad ruling. You know, the conservatives are so focused on these things. They're not focused, like, at least back in the day, no liberal is going to say Ronald Reagan was a great president. You're not going to find many liberals who are going to say Ronald Reagan is a great president. But you guarantee you, if you gave me the choice, if I had the choice between Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan, I'd want Ronald Reagan, because at least Ronald Reagan showed that he was willing to work with Democrats to do things. Even if I didn't agree with a lot of things he wanted to do, the Republicans back in the day would at least work with the other side of the aisle. They would. That's one of the problems where I think Joe Biden was a little, what's the word I'm looking for? I think he was a little overeager, or there's a word I'm looking for and I'm really blanking on it. But I think he was, what's the word?
Overbearing?
No, it was. He thought that something would happen. Excuse me, but it really wasn't. It was never going to happen because he thought that him getting elected would automatically trigger the Republicans wanting to work with him, because back when he was in the Senate, he would work with Republicans, even though when he was president of the Senate as vice president under Obama, the Republicans never wanted to work with the Democrats either. So I think he was a little foolish, and by not remembering that. I think he thought that if he was in the main chair, that the people like Mitch McConnell, that the people like Kevin McCarthy, that the people who were, who were not the wackos like your Marjorie Taylor Greens, like your, I want to say, no, that's not Babbitt. The one from Colorado, Boebert, Gates, your Matt Gateses of the world, your Madison Cawthorns of the world, like, that Biden felt that he would be able to get a coalition of people together to do things for the American people, and that him coming from as somebody who was a more centrist Democrat would be able to reach across the aisle and get things done for the country. And the Republicans are like, nope, we're not going to do anything to work with him, or we'll do the bare minimum to work with him, because we have to.
Well, I
answer
remember
to our
Ross
extremists.
Perot and his vice presidential candidate, the gridlock and everything. The gridlock's been going on for a long time, and it's the same money providing both parties. It's like the Gambinos and the Genevieves sitting down at the table, and once one threatens the other's money, they start shooting at each other, But but as long as the money's coming in, they're going to work with each other at the end of the day, So it's really. Again, we have to get back to what's the sickness in America. What's the problem here? It's not just the Republican. It's the money and the Federal Reserve and the New World Order that they're trying. The globalists are trying to present to us right now. And this EU, the African Union, Asia Union, North American Union, all that's real. And I don't know about you. I enjoy. And again, it goes back to the borders. If we don't have secure borders and we don't have sovereignty as a country, we don't have a country. What are we going to be assimilated to? A globalist economy, a one world government where you have no voice? Look at these corporations. Do you have a voice with eBay or Amazon? Try calling customer service there and see if you get any results. They don't care about you, just like our government today. They don't care about you. So how do we fix it? Attacking each other, left versus right, is not going to work. You just said working with each other. Well, how are we going to work with each other if we don't have honest discussions about the truthful history of our country and our republic? How are we going to work with each other when we don't know the truth of what really happened and why we're here today in the position we're in? What's controlling? What are the controlling factors? What's going on really behind the scenes? What are these people's agendas? We always talk about how rich people are out of touch with poor people because they live a different type of lifestyle. They don't know how we live, or the middle class. So imagine these elites out there, these super rich people. You think they have any idea or inclination of what it's like to work all day long, or to be broke, or to have to pay a bill? So they don't care about us. They don't care. Bill Gates and all these other people.
Well, that's the thing, though. Let me roll that back. I think somebody like Joe Biden does. Joe Biden grew up like that. He grew up in a poor household. He grew up in a household where his dad lost his job, or where he had to move to make a better life for his family, where he was working class, coming from Pennsylvania, moving to Delaware.
50 years, though. 50 years
right, but
in government.
What
has he done?
But he still lived that life. He still understands what it is to be that type of person. Now, they're guaranteed there are other people who are in government who absolutely don't understand what that's like. But the thing is, like, some of the things that you talk about, like, your New World Order, your globalists, now, a lot of times I didn't have my little counter on or whatever. When a lot of times, you talk about globalists, and maybe you don't mean it when you say globalist, but every time most people talk about globalists, all we hear is the Jews. Whenever we hear anybody talking about blaming George Soros, all we hear is it's the Jews. Like, I'm not saying it's that you personally believe that, but when generally speaking, when anybody starts saying those things, people like myself, who is Jewish, and other people who might like Jewish people and don't want to see anti-Semitism, start shutting it off, because even if you specifically don't mean it consciously, or even if you don't mean it subconsciously, even if you love every Jew in your life and you want and you don't blame Jews for any of the problems in the world, we hear those words, and we're like, oh, here it goes again. It's repeating a mantra that you might not believe it, but the other people who before you who have said all of those things are people who are anti-Semitic, are people who are trying to scapegoat Jewish people, are people. So you know, and it makes us not want to believe any of the, you know, quote, conspiracies that you're trying to say, simply because of the fact that it's coming from a place that we know that we feel is going to end in a bad place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, I understand completely, and I understand a lot of the history that you're talking about, and I get that. But and believe me, I'm farthest from just blaming the Jews. You have the Catholic Church, you have the Jesuits, you have many different groups out there that are part of globalist organizations that are trying to defeat individual liberty and sovereignty. So yes, I understand what you're saying.
Right, but even then, like there was a lot of views that are anti, like people said that, if people blaming the Catholic Church for things like why JFK, people thought JFK was going to have a hard time becoming president because everyone's concerned, well, if JFK becomes president, does that mean the Pope's going to run America? That sort of thing. It's people repeating things. People repeating things that we've heard for a long time as dog whistles. And while, again, I'm not blaming you specifically and saying you specifically adhere to those underlying things, but many of the other people who brought up the same arguments that you bring up are the people who also bring up the other things. So therefore, it's kind of hard for us it's hard for me to sit here and want to go investigate, you know, the amount of time it would take to investigate all of the things of which you spoke about, because of the poisoning of the well that has been done by many other people who also believe the things that you do, who also believe that Jews are bad, who believe that, who march down the streets of Charlottesville saying the Jews will not replace us, march down the street shouting blood and soil, people saying that they want, Well,
what Donald Trump did say that statement there, which divided the country, he said there were bad people on both sides. Do you believe that, or are you just going to blame one side? Because I'm going to say both sides were wrong. I mean, so what would somebody say to that? Can we pick sides? Are we going to be saying, okay, now you're against me, or are we not going to have a discussion now? You understand what I'm saying? Were both sides wrong?
Well, the problem with the Charlottesville riot is that maybe there were bad people on both sides, but I think he was trying to say there were good people on both sides. And my issue is, if you are marching in a parade right next to people who are shouting, the Jews will not replace us, who are shouting blood and soil, who are spouting Nazi rhetoric, then I'm going to look at you and believe that you agree with that stuff too. So there's okay. So it's hard for me to agree with anybody. Oh, were there good people on the side of the people who are protesting in support of keeping the monuments? I can't say yes, because all I see is people marching alongside Nazis, because Nazis poisoned the well. And some people say, what about the people that are anti-American, anti-foundation of our country, that want to destroy George Washington, Christopher Columbus, we have to erase our history, and you have to be ashamed to be white. When we talked about that, the critical race theory that's being taught in the schools, or being introduced to the schools, or even being taught in the college universities today. Well, I know we had a debate whether or not it's being taught in the elementary schools and whatnot, being introduced, but I believe the curriculum is. That's why there's so many these moms first, these organizations that are growing across the country and now being labeled terrorists by Joe Biden. And if you're going to alienate one side, then this problem's then yes, those groups, whether they're Jewish, Catholic, whatever, if anyone who alienates one side, you're creating another side that's angry at you. So therefore, who's behind it now? Who's behind this? Who's creating this division? That's what you have to look at. Was Christopher Columbus not a piece of crap? I
never met the guy.
Right, so I know, but historically speaking, there are many, many bad things that Christopher Columbus did, and we should learn about that. historically speaking, there were bad things that were done by Americans.
But he's a hero to Italian Americans. So now you're going to alienate Italians, and Italians are going to be offended. Now we've got prejudice coming from that group, that group. You know,
Well,
if we do it for Irish, you know what I mean?
There are people to whom Hitler was a hero. Do we care about them? No.
Well, I think we should care. Well, wait. I think we should care about all people's opinions. All people have the right to their opinions. If we censor anybody, then we're just as bad as what we're claiming that we're against. Because we cannot believe one way. We have to be open to all theories and ideas and go with what is consciously right and morally right. Obviously, you don't want to hurt anyone. And, okay, that's the first step. That's why common law and common sense is so very important. And that's what this country was founded upon, our republic. And that's why when we're losing that today, we're getting one-sided again. You know, we destroy ourselves from within because of our lack of knowledge.
So we believe that every side should have a say. Every side should be represented. There should be everything there. So you disagree.
So you're not hurting someone. So you're not hurting anyone.
So you disagree then with the people that want to remove certain books out of libraries, certain books out of things that have,
yes, no books should be removed. No, never.
Books should be removed.
Never.
Even books that mention LGBTQ folks.
No, you can have whatever books you want, but just don't push those books upon the children in our schools. Let's not bring lifestyles and sexual content and teach and let the politicians teach our children about things that the family should be teaching at home.
Okay, but where does that line get drawn? Do you exclude a book?
Morality.
Do you exclude that's a children's book that's written as a children's book that doesn't do anything except for have a family that is two dads raising a kid? Is that okay?
Well, that's not natural. That's not natural. That's common sense. So now we go back to common sense. Look, if you want to be gay and do whatever you want in the privacy of your home, that's fine. But openly in the public to redefine marriage, that it's between a man and a man, and let government define. God already defined what marriage was. It was between a man and a woman.
Well, I mean, in the Bible, Solomon married 300 wives. Like there are people in the Bible that got married to lots of people. Like,
well, sure.
So
he didn't marry men, no.
Okay, but it's not just one man, one woman then. It's not just one man, one woman. The definition of marriage is different amongst all sorts of people. There are...
Well, that's being taken out of context between a man and a woman. I
often use the religious definition of marriage and the governmental definition of marriage are quite different in that, even before you had Obergefell v. Hodges, I often use the founder of Popeye's Chicken, Al Copeland, as an example. He was Catholic. He got married to his first wife in the Catholic Church. He divorced her in the eyes of the state, but in the eyes of the Catholic Church, he was still married. He got married again in the state. He got married again after a divorce in the state, and then he got divorced again. And then his first wife died, and he married his fourth wife in the Catholic Church. Why? Because in the Catholic Church, they were now divorced. There was no longer a marriage because she died. The marriage, that union was no longer there. So in the eyes of the Catholic Church, Al Copeland was married twice. In the eyes of the state, he was married 4 times. So the idea of
the Bible
religious
says
marriage...
it's the city on 7 hills. By the book of Revelation, the city that sits on 7 hills in the end of days is where the Antichrist is supposed to go. There's only 2 places on planet Earth that has a city built on 7 hills: Rio de Janeiro and the Vatican. So you tell me, which one is it? If the Bible's true, and if you believe in the Bible, or if you believe God. So that's where your Antichrist is going to come out of, and your New World Order. And,
that's the Christian Bible, right?
Well, what do you mean Christian Bible? There's only one Bible.
Well, to me, I was raised Jewish. The only Bible that I believe in that I was raised to believe in was the Tanakh, the Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, the writings that ends after the Psalms, the what is referred to as the New Testament by Christian folks.
So you believe in torturing animals and stringing cows upside down and slitting their throats and as a ritual and to practice the old law of that, such as the Talmud practices? Well,
in order to have kosher beef, you have to do it in a certain way, and there are kosher butchers who still slaughter cows that certain way.
Yeah.
So I don't I don't follow the rules of kashrut. I don't keep kosher. I love cheeseburgers. I love BLTs. I'm.
Well, now wait a second. Either you believe it or you don't. You can't say I pick and choose what I want to believe, and I'm going to be my own God here. If you believe God,
I'm arguing from a point where I'm educated on. I went to Hebrew school for 8 years and had more learning in high school after that. I'm very knowledgeable about Judaism. I didn't say I believe in it or practice it. My joke is that I don't need to practice. I've practiced enough. I don't have to practice anymore. But
who says? No.
So
you're your own God, basically.
That's my joke. No, what I'm saying is that my understanding of Judaism and what the Jewish people refer to as the Bible is much different than what the Christians refer to as their Bible, and then what the Muslims refer to as their holy book is different. There are many different people. To me, if I'm a God, if I was God, and if I saw various different amounts of people who perhaps have various different needs in what they need from religion in order to behave and be good people, I might reveal myself as one way to the Jews, as another way to the Christians, as another way to the Muslims, as another way to the Buddhists, as another way to any other set of religions that might exist out there. If I felt that, these groups of people needed different things from me in order for them to be able to live good lives and be good people.
Well, you're bringing God down to your level, and you're saying to bringing it from a human perspective and trying to put God into your eyes, and you're trying to judge things according to the way. Look, there's only one way, and Jesus said it. I am the only way to the Father. And that's it. Jesus said it. And
so then all Jews are going to hell. Even though the Jews have an everlasting covenant.
Well, didn't Jesus call? What did Jesus say to the Jews? You're the synagogue of Satan, correct? What did he say? Those who claim to be Jews that are not are the synagogue of Satan. Is that not what the Bible says?
Well, if you claim to be Jews and you're not, then maybe you're not Jews. But if you really are Jews and you're practicing
a remnant,
and if you're practicing Judaism, Jews have an eternal covenant with God that is everlasting, and God's word can't be flawed, right?
He did have a comment, but he turned his back on the Jews and went to the Gentiles. In the age of grace, you have to go by the Bible and dispensations of the Bible.
So God's word was
imperfect. Understand that one comma in the Bible could separate 1,000 years. So you have to rightly divide the word, and you just can't, and you have to read the whole book. But that's an interesting theology subject. If you ever want to have a discussion on that in the future, but that's a loaded topic, and I do have a theology degree. And I have gone to school for theology and have studied world religion and many different other aspects of Christianity and our different translation charts of the Bible. The seventh translation is the King James Bible, 1611 King James Bible, which was prophesied in the book of Psalms. It says he purified his word 7 times. And that is, and if you want to do business around the world today, what language do you have to speak? English. Basically, that is a predominant
but a translation
language around the world today.
Of a translation is probably not going to be as accurate as the original either. Just like if you saw the movie, what's that movie with Michael Keaton where he clones himself? Multiplicity, where they make a clone. Michael Keaton clones himself twice, but then the clones make a copy of the clones, and the clone of the clone isn't as sharp as the other one. And so if you make a clone of the clone, it's not going to be as sharp as the original. Like they say, if you make a copy of a copy, it's always not going to be as sharp as the original. If you make a translation of a translation, it's not always going to be as much as the original. The word that was used, that people a lot of times interpret as virgin, is alma, in the Hebrew word alma, which means young woman. It doesn't mean virgin. There are other times in the Hebrew Bible where the word for virgin is used. But I don't necessarily want to get too sidetracked in a religious discussion. But But that's to me a translation of a translation of a 7 different translations of something doesn't purify it. To me, 7 translations of something means you probably should go back to the original Hebrew to see what the original words were.
But we have the original, and if you go back to the manuscripts, the Textus Receptus manuscripts, and you go back to the Dead Sea Scrolls, even they coincide with that come within 50 years of the original manuscripts. They coincide. The King James Bible does with the original manuscripts, and like I said, you don't want to get into the translations and whatnot, but that's an interesting subject, and I could go over that with you sometime. And it's very interesting. But if you rightly divide the word and you compare Scripture with Scripture, you'll see the Bible answers itself, and the answers are there. And it's hard to find, and you seek the truth, and you'll find it. And one person did tell me once, and I've been questioning a lot of my theological beliefs just to close on that, is that if you ask God to come into your life and you open your heart up to God and Jesus, and you believe wholeheartedly in your Creator, no matter who your Creator is, you will find the truth if you seek and find it, and you open yourself and you honestly, sincerely try to find the truth. You'll find it. Your moral compass will steer you the right way. If you're a good person, try to do the right thing. I really believe that wholeheartedly.
All right,
but I believe right now in our country we're steering down the wrong path with the policies that we're having, and our government is broken. And that's how we start out the conversation. I do believe that the policies of the Republicans and Democrats are breaking up this country and destroying the foundations of our republic. And we have to get back to our true history, and we have to understand our history and how we lost our republic. And when we honestly come to that conclusion, and we all could see it together, we can all come together and fix it so easily, and we can eliminate the bad and the evil and the corrupt out there. We really could, because there's good in everybody. You just got to find it, and it's hard to find it. So, but if we come together and work together, you can find it. So I really believe that.
All right, let me mute you a second. I do have another caller on the line. Let me go ahead and get to Bill. Hey, Bill, how's it going? I know you wanted to throw in your 2 cents here, so I did want to go ahead and let you do that.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Bill?
Pretty good. I have a couple of questions for your caller. He said that the King James Bible was within 15 years of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Is that what I understood him to just say?
I think he said 50. I can bring it back on. I think he said 50.
It's not within 1,000 years.
I said the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Deciphering those scrolls.
The Dead Sea. I said it coincides with the Dead Sea Scrolls. The King James Bible comes in within 50 years of the original manuscripts, Textus Receptus manuscripts.
Textus Receptus wasn't written until 300 A.D. What are you talking about?
The King James, it coincides with the Textus
Receptus
manuscript.
King James does not coincide with the very first scripture was written in Latin and Hebrew.
So what? You can still translate them into English.
See, you sat there a few minutes ago and told a bald-faced lie. You said the founding fathers were godly men.
They were.
Okay, if they were godly men, they would be in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal. If all men were created equal, how come they had men chained up out back?
How come they had men chained up out back? Who had men? What men chained up out back? Who had men chained up out back?
Slaves,
what are you talking about?
Idiot. Slaves. I grew up on the Mason.
No, I'm not calling anybody any names
300 miles from Washington, D.C. You don't even know
you're
what
going to start calling me names
about.
now. You can't have an honest intellectual discussion. You're going to revert to names.
No, I can't have an honest discussion with you because you're not honest. You sit there and you throw out the globalists, the anti. You claim to be pro-Israel and you hate Jews.
I hate Jews. Did you ever hear me say I hate Jews? Did you ever hear me say I hate Jews? How did you come to that conclusion?
Globalist, New World Order.
That means hate Jews.
As I said earlier, let me interrupt both of y'all. As I said before, every time that somebody like myself or like Bill hears somebody using the terms like globalists and attacking George Soros and stuff like that, to us that are dog whistles that are saying we're blaming the Jews. Again, as I said,
well, if George Soros is Jewish and he's doing the bad thing and he's Jewish, then he's a bad person.
Right.
I can't say anything bad about a Jewish person. I mean, I'm anti-Semitic then.
No, but the people who typically bring up the George Soros arguments.
Bad man on the planet.
The people who bring up the George Soros arguments are the people who typically blaming the Jews. So therefore, if you're doing it as well, it's going to make us go, well, wait a second, what do you believe? Now, I was trying to be a little more diplomatic with the whole thing and say, maybe you don't believe that the Jews are to blame. However, when people hear you talking about globalists and George Soros, a lot of people are, like Bill P., are going to sit here and say he's blaming the Jews. So
what? But he doesn't like the founding fathers. Obviously, he's angry with the founding fathers, saying they had people chained up out back. Out back where? Back of what? Out back of the buildings where they were writing the documents. No, they didn't have people chained up out back. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson owned slaves. They owned slaves.
What the hell's
They
wrong
did.
with you?
Do you know the
Where did
Federalist
you get
Papers?
your history from?
I do know my history, and I do understand history. How many slaves
What
did
history?
George Washington own,
You
sir?
understand revised history. You don't understand American history.
I understand American history.
That's the problem. You talk about critical race theory. You don't even know what it is. I taught it in college. It's
So
only
what is
taught in
critical race
law
theory?
school.
What is
you don't
critical
even know
race
what
theory?
you're talking about.
Well, explain it to me.
You don't even know
What's
what
critical
you
race
don't have
theory?
a clue.
You
What
said
you
that
need
four
to do is
different
get
ways
off
now.
here and go buy a clue somewhere. Walmart's open. Go buy a clue.
But now here you are criticizing me again. I haven't called you one name. Can you educate me? What does critical race theory mean since you taught it?
It's what I just told you about.
I didn't hear it. You're too busy calling me names.
Laws written that discriminate against other people, other fellow men. And that's exactly what you were talking about, like building walls. Let me ask you a question. You claim to be a Christian, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't claim to be. I am.
I'm going to ask you a question that's sort of going to make you scratch your head. If Egypt would have had a wall, what would have happened to Jesus when Herod was after him?
If 12 monkeys
Mary and
danced on the
Joseph.
end of a branch and fell off the stick, what would that mean? I mean, come on. What are we going to play, hypotheticals here? I mean, that's
No,
a
I'm not
silly
going to play
question.
hypotheticals. Ronald Reagan asked that same question with George Bush in a debate in 1980.
They did. Well, good for him. I'm not going to play it. Calm down. Take it easy. Don't blow a spark plug. Okay? I'm not getting a little. You're getting excited. Well, I don't know what Ronald Reagan and George Bush debated with each other, did hypotheticals with each other about, but I'm dealing with reality. Okay? Egypt didn't build a wall. But Israel has a wall around it.
People coming across the border from Mexico. And
Excuse me,
Ronald
sir.
Reagan said the next Jesus could come out of Mexico.
Excuse me. You're pro-Israel, obviously.
Walls, and what would these people do?
Excuse me. Excuse me. Israel has a wall around it, right?
There are walls. There's a wall around Gaza that Israel erected because Israel did not want the Hamas terrorists to just have free reign to come attack. We don't have terrorists coming across our border, the southern border attacking us. But also
sure we do.
No,
sure we do. There's you got the Mexican cartels coming across the border committing crimes all the time now down there.
Are there shells coming across from Mexico? Are there suicide bombers coming across from Mexico?
I saw the babies in papoose pouches holding their mother's hand, getting thrown off airplanes and buses by these governors of Texas and Florida. Yeah, I really saw those terrorists.
So you don't think we should have a border wall? You don't think we should protect our borders in America? You don't think we should have border security?
The border wall was a vanity project of Donald Trump to say, look at what I did. I built this huge wall.
Have you ever taken up a weapon and guarded anything? Have you ever done that?
Excuse me. Again, what I've done doesn't matter. I'm asking you a question.
Oh, yes, it does matter. That's a life experience. And don't talk about something that you have no experience in.
Do you think we should have borders in our country? I'm an American citizen. I'm a political candidate here in North Carolina. So I do know what I'm talking about. Do you think we should have borders?
State lines. And we in our Constitution, we have what's called, what do we call it? What is it called? It's called free commerce. We can travel across the state lines. A bill was passed by Bill Clinton in 1995. It was written up by Ronald Reagan. You know what it was called?
What, you're talking about your NAFTA Act? Is that what
the
you're
North
talking
American
about?
Free Trade Agreement. It's called NAFTA.
Yeah, okay.
That's right.
It was destroyed, but
You
shipped
said
many
that
millions of
people
jobs
anyway.
out of this country. Destroyed the fabric of our economy. Okay? So what are you talking? And Ross Perot, an independent, even disagreed with that. Businessman, a billionaire who built out pennies to a billionaire, said NAFTA was a disaster. So, but we don't need to go back and argue about NAFTA.
What do you mean,
That's over
Ross
and done with.
Perot? He was an oil man. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's right. He built his empire out of nothing. Okay, he was a businessman. He was very well
He was an
educated.
oil man. He didn't import anything. He didn't export anything but oil. That's
He
what we
still
got
built
the
a company.
petrodollar.
He still built a company and became a billionaire when he was broke and had nothing. He came from nothing. So that's the point I'm trying to make. What do you believe we should have border security? Do you believe that our borders should be protected or not?
Our borders are protected.
No, it's not what I asked you. Do you believe our borders should be protected?
We've had record interception. We've had record drug seizures over the last 2 years.
That's
We've had
not
more
what I
drug
asked
seized
you.
under the Biden administration than the entire Trump administration.
That's not what I asked you.
Hold on. Let me mute both of y'all.
border?
I'm going to mute both of y'all for a second just so I can get a word in. Host privilege and all. The question of, do you think we should that we should protect the border is a question that leads to the assumption that making a claim that it currently is not protected. And so if the border, if Bill then comes and makes the argument that the border is protected, he's clearly saying that, you know, he's countering your argument as such. I also do want to add in the point, you did ask, how many slaves did George Washington own? At the time of George Washington's death, the Mount Vernon enslaved population consisted of 317 people. Of those 317 enslaved people living at Mount Vernon in 1799, a little less than half, 123 people, were owned by George Washington himself. So yes, George Washington did own slaves. I will let y'all continue after I...
Yes, you're absolutely right. He did own slaves, and those slaves had a much better life than they would have had on any other plantation, than they would not have had with George Washington. And they did not believe in slavery, the founders. They were
You really believe that nonsense. You really believe that nonsense.
You really think if George Washington stood up on the podium as President of the United States and said, I want to abolish slavery today, what would happen to this country?
And drug away from their families and brought to this country in chains. And you're saying they had a better life? What
excuse
are you talking
me.
about?
You want?
No, he said but they had a better life than any other slave in the country. So they were the least inconvenient slaves under your theory. But that doesn't mean that they're good.
And at that time,
it doesn't mean that it's good.
Dan, yeah, that's correct. And Dan, at that time, if George Washington would have stood up, which he did want to, he did not believe in slavery. Neither did Jefferson or Adams.
No, you're wrong. The only one that stood up is John Adams. The rest, John Adams and Benjamin Franklin, are the only two that spoke up. You're wrong, buddy. You need to go read the Federalist Papers. There's the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers. I taught on both of them. You don't know what you're talking about.
I did.
You have no clue. Like I said, you need to go buy a clue.
Well, I do believe that you are backwards.
History instead of your white Christian nationalist history.
My white Christian nationalism. So am I being discriminated against now? So am I a threat to you, and you think do you fear me or?
I'm white. Not a threat to me.
I didn't ask you what color you were. You didn't have to announce that to me.
You asked me if I was a threat to you. You're not a threat to me.
I asked you about me.
I fear no man. This knee bows before no man. I don't fear any man. But
why did you label me a nationalist? Why did you label me a nationalist? Why did you label me a nationalist, a white Christian nationalist? Why? What's wrong with that?
You're by definition a white Christian nationalist.
And so what threat is that to you?
Religion off on the rest of this country. That's white Christian nationalism.
And we are founded upon a Judeo-Christian. We are founded upon a Judeo-Christian.
No. Wait. Bill, stop a second. Bill, stop a second, please. Yeah. There's no such thing as Judeo-Christian. Judeo-Christian is a farce, because if you believe in Judaism, you can't be a Christian, because they're two different things. The only
Judeo-Christianity has nothing to do with Judaism. It was more like deism that the founders were actually founding upon, actually what they believed. But again, you didn't want to.
The founders were deists, but we're not Judeo-Christian. In fact, the Treaty of Tripoli specifically. Bill, a little bit. Yeah. The Treaty of Tripoli specifically stated that was negotiated by Washington, ratified by the Senate, signed by Adams, said that our country was in no way founded on the Christian religion. So we are not a Christian nation. We are not a Judeo-Christian nation. Judeo-Christian is a farce. It's just a word that's made up to try and make Christians seem less horrible when they're trying to be evangelical. Be like, oh, well, we like the Jews too when it's convenient. That's what Judeo-Christian means. We like the Jews when it's convenient. It's not a thing. But yeah, our founders were clear that we are not founded on the Christian religion. We are not a Christian nation.
Well, I don't understand why you would say that, because what did he say? That our Constitution is written for a religious and moral people, and it's inadequate for any other.
Jesus was not mentioned in the Constitution, jackass.
Oh, Lord. That's correct. He's not.
You're
right.
Now. You are pandering now. That's exactly what you're doing. Pandering to your base, not ours.
Let's begin with Thomas Jefferson. You made a quote about Thomas Jefferson. And his words.
He wrote the Treaty of Tripoli, and he signed it. He was president.
In his You know, look, I'm not going to speak political correctness. I say what I mean and mean what I say, and I'm going to speak the truth. And you can water down history all you want and try to denigrate our founding fathers of our republic. However, they are my heroes, and that's what I believe. And I believe that they are an example that we as Americans should go by. And if you are anti-American and don't believe in our foundations and believe that they're a threat to our history or that they were wrong or mean or bad people, then that's anti-American and goes against everything.
But here's the thing. That's my point. Wait. That's my point here about the whole what y'all say when you talk about CRT. You don't actually when you talk CRT is a college course thing. When y'all bring up CRT, you bring up the idea that it's against American. It's not patriotic to teach anything in our history that would somehow put the founders or anything about the foundation of our country in a bad light. That's the problem that we have with y'all. We believe the people who like the 1619 Project folks, or I think there's a Hulu series on that. I might have to watch it just to see what it's all about. But the people who want to teach real history want to teach everything about history, the good and the bad. And the reason you teach the good and the bad, you can teach that there are good things about the foundation of our country, that these are the ideals that the founding fathers claimed to believe in and wanted to believe in and wanted to push up. But you could also say, here are the flaws of the founding fathers. Here is where we failed to live up to those initial words of all men are created equal by ratifying a constitution that had a 3/5 compromise in it. Is that
Well, critical race theory, the foundation goes back to the 1970s. Law professors, including Harvard Law School, like Derek Bell, who was one of the original teachers of critical race theory in the 1970s.
Right, that's law school. That's law school. That's not what y'all referred to. Y'all call everything CRT that talks badly about the country. The thing
because
is
that's
that
what the liberal progressive movement does. It progresses into another stance and another field of study with the critical race theory. It introduces that the white person needs to be ashamed. We need to apologize.
Nobody is saying that the white person needs to be ashamed.
That's the thing.
That's the thing. I want you to email me. You have my email address. Any example of any teacher, any curriculum in any school that teaches the white person needs to be ashamed of themselves. Find it.
Okay, let me ask you. Okay, let me give you one right now. Black Americans, for example, are incarcerated at much higher rates than any other racial group, and the theory invites scrutiny of the criminal justice system's role in that. So explain that. What is that's one of the critical race theory academias that they teach. Why is
in law school
that we should be guilty that they're being incarcerated more? That the system itself is inherently racist, or is crime really a plague and a pandemic in the black community? Well, why don't we address what's really going on?
The majority of the stockholders.
Let me finish, sir.
The majority of the stockholders in the prison population are white stockholders. And
the 1986 Anti-Drug Abuse Act establishes harsher penalties for possession of crack cocaine than those for powder cocaine. Black Americans are more likely to be convicted of the former and whites than the latter. Within 4 years, average federal drug sentences for black offenders were 49% higher than those handed out for white offenders.
Right.
However, when you look at the numbers, that according to the American Civil Liberties Union, the numbers are exactly the opposite. In fact, that actually whites actually receive harsher sentences because they were actually what whites were shipping in the drug smugglers. You didn't see any black drug smugglers back then, did you? Who was receiving the 60-year jail sentences? They made movies, for God's sake, about it. Remember George Young, that movie Blow? 60 years in prison. So that's false. This is false.
Well, that's smuggling. That's smuggling versus using. That's smuggling versus possession. Simple possession of crack cocaine came with the same amount of crack cocaine came with a much harsher penalty than the punishment of powdered cocaine. So, and that is a systemic issue that caused black people to be incarcerated more. Poverty increases crime more. You have a system, and this is a video that I might be making at some point soon. So I'll briefly touch on it. Is that a lot of times we talk about when you talk about investment, you talk about compound interest and the importance of compound interest and compounding interest over years. So you gain interest one year, then that amount of money also gains interest the next year. So the amount of wealth that you can have grows and grows and grows and grows. This country has had compound discrimination. So from the start of this country, through up until today. You have examples of society where people who are not white, because they're not white, were disenfranchised, were discriminated against, and that discrimination has caused a lack of ability to grow wealth, lost opportunities to earn wealth from being enslaved, from having redlining, from having from having Jim Crow laws, from making people not being able to vote when they have been allowed to vote because
all implemented by the Democratic Party. By the way.
And the Democratic Party back then were the conservatives of the time because they were the people shouting the myth of states' rights. The people who were Democrats back then would be Republicans today, and that is a fact.
I don't know about Senator Byrd. He pretty much stayed.
There are exceptions. The exceptions prove the rule. You had Strom Thurmond who flipped.
Now. Come on.
You had Strom Thurmond who ran for president as a segregationist who found a nice, comfy home in the Republican Party as well. Trent Lott found a nice, comfy home in the Republican Party. Many of the people who were Democrats way back in the day, locally in Louisiana, who are all conservatives, have slowly flipped and have become the Republican Party. If you look at the slave states,
I've spoken to a lot of black leaders and black people in the community. I went on a liberal talk show about 6 months ago when I was running for public office here in North Carolina, and they were all against me when I first went on there because they found I was Republican. And I had a moderator that grilled me and debated me. By the end of the podcast, at the end of the show, 50 callers, all about 49 of them that were liberal, said they would vote for me. That's how much it changed, because I understand what you're talking about and I get it. But when you have ignorant conversations and it turns into a shouting match, and you have people calling in, conducting themselves that way, and you get into the name calling, the communication lines break down.
Gaslight people, when you sit and gaslight people for 30 minutes, what am I supposed to do?
I have not criticized you one time.
You said gaslight. You said gaslight.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
Gaslight for 30 minutes with your.
But
with
disagree with me. Let's not label me. Let's disagree.
Santos wrote the talking point.
Let's disagree and not label, though. Let's not put label terms. I don't call you any names or gaslight, whatever, or whatever it may be. And that's the problem. And liberals do have that problem. When they're beaten in a debate or an argument, they automatically call.
I have a question there, genius. Who said I was a liberal?
I said liberals. Did I say you were a liberal? I said liberals have this problem.
I was a liberal?
Again, I never said you were. I said liberals have this problem.
No, you just implied I was.
If you think you want me to think that I'm implying you to be a liberal, that's fine. I don't know what you're thinking I'm thinking. I never called you a liberal. I don't know what you are. You never stated what you were. But I can assume, but I haven't even done that, have I? But if you're thinking I'm thinking that, then what are you then? How about that? Let's clear it up. What are you, a Republican, Democrat?
I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in the rule of law.
The constitutionalist. So you're a
I believe in
constitutional
the
party?
rule of law.
A constitutional
no, I'm
party?
a constitutionalist. I believe in the rule of law.
Okay, all right. I haven't heard that one in a while, but okay.
But let's get back. Let's get back to the original point that I wanted, because I'm not. Okay. I'm not going to last that much longer with my voice.
Yeah, you're not feeling well. I get it, man. I appreciate you hanging in there. I really do, and I hope you feel better. I
appreciate the fact that you and Bill have been talking has allowed me to extend the length of the show a little bit, even if y'all were fighting a little bit. But here's back to the point of the thing, though, is that I really wanted to get back to is the fact that we liberals, again, want to teach the good and the bad. Like, so a liberal will teach, the Bill of Rights, the importance of having free speech, the importance of having freedom of religion. And no liberal's going to say when we teach the history of this country that we're not going to teach about the First Amendment, that we're not going to teach about the importance of having free speech, of having freedom of religion, of having freedom of association, freedom of the press. And those are good things that form the backbone of a lot of the things in this country. And liberal teachers are going to teach that. They're also going to want to teach about the flaws of the country back when we were founded, how we enslaved people, how we treated people poorly, how, we had to, pander to the people who wanted to own people in order to form this country, this imperfect union. And that is an okay also thing to learn about. And the problem is that when a lot of the conservatives will then call that CRT. They believe that it's unpatriotic. They believe that that you hate this country because you want to teach the flaws that the country had in its founding and throughout its history. And that's not CRT, and B, it's a mistake to not teach the flaws, because history forgotten will repeat itself. And it's important to learn the good, and it's important to learn the bad. And when I see conservatives wanting to not teach the bad, it makes me question why. It makes me question why they don't want to teach the bad. And the only reason I can think of that you wouldn't want to teach the bad is because these conservatives who are against it, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying there's many conservatives that are against it, want the bad to repeat themselves. They want to go back to what we had. And it starts from,
it's dangerous. It's dangerous, and biased, the curriculum to indoctrinate impressionable children. And as a matter of fact, in Tennessee is one of the states actually, at least eight Republican led states actually have passed legislation restricting how the concept of race can be taught. In Tennessee, where legislation was signed into law in May, actually, of last year, lessons cannot make students feel discomfort, guilt, or anguish because of their race or sex. And I believe that's how it should be, because children are very impressionable, and that can carry on throughout their life, and especially during their puberty years and whatnot. You remember those years, and I'm sure everybody does. These are types of subjects that should be taught in the family and at home and in their community, and what type of community they're raised in. And then when they go out into the world, they learn from themselves, and that's how you learn and you grow up. And there could be shock and awe, and there could be people that you disagree with and you run into, but that's the way the world operates. And I don't think we should be ashamed of our history.
But see, that to me, that's not okay, because I think it's a very vague wording. And that can be interpreted in any way. Like someone could say, "Oh, well, they taught that
that's right.
They taught white people.
Amen.
They taught that white." Well, I don't think laws should be written in a way that could be openly interpreted like that. No
law should be written where it's not where it's. You're right. It should not be ambiguous. But no law should be written where, like I said, this is a family structured thing. This is something that the family has to do. It's not for the legislator or government to teach this.
No, but
it's not the government's job to teach race theory.
But at school it was a fact that you had slave owning, and that the majority of the people owning slaves were white people and white slave owners. Now,
and who sold those? Okay, all right. If we're going to teach the true history, you're right, but you got to teach it all then. And and if you're going to allow government to do that, let's go back to Northwest Africa. The kings that sold the slaves were actually black, and and we get into the British that were over there and who shipped them over. Let's get into all that. Okay, that's fine if you want to do that and you want to teach history, just history that way. But race theory in a whole where people.
But it's not race theory that's being taught. Again, it's not race theory that's being taught. That's a college thing. What's being taught is we had things in this country that were good. We had things in this country that were... Should we not teach how poorly the Indians were treated over the course of the history? Should we only teach Thanksgiving? Should we only teach...
Now, where do you get... Well, hang on. Where do you get that Indians were treated poorly as a blanket, a whole statement? Again, they were treated poorly, but did the Indians treat the whites poorly? They were scalping whites left and right. I mean, so are we going to teach that too? Or is that uncomfortable and we can't say anything bad about the Indians because they were at the short end of the stick at the end, and they're only 2% of the population now? So again, so we don't want to offend them. Are we going to teach the truth?
Well, yeah, we should teach the truth about what the Native American...
Okay,
we can teach the truth about what Native American tribes have done. That also is going to... damn it. Include what we did as well. Trail of Tears. We should... To me, the people who are conservatives, who are railing against CRT, would be against teaching about the Trail of Tears. Should we or should we not teach that in school?
That in my school, actually.
Huh?
I don't think in public schools it should be. I think in private college universities where you're paying for your education, then that's something up to the college boards and universities if they want to teach. But in an elementary school, teaching something like this, like I originally said, in the younger years where children are so impressionable, I don't think these are subjects that are constructive and that are going to help our children today. You know.
I mean, I disagree. I'm disappointed with the fact that I had to learn about what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the bombing of Black Wall Street as an adult, like a couple years ago. Like I'm disappointed. Like I think that people should learn those things about how horribly, in
elementary school.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I learned about Rosa Parks in elementary school. I learned about Martin Luther King and what happened to him in elementary school. Not just the things he said that were good, but the reason why he said those things.
Well, again, those are discussions for local school boards and not on a national standard, and that's why you have local state governments and local school boards and communities. And, I mean, it becomes a national argument, and then it gets blown out of proportion. Like we're a national show, you're obviously across the country, worldwide, and we're having an open discussion. So, I mean, I'll as a conservative, I'll agree with you if you want to teach both sides, but I'll meet you halfway. I don't think elementary school students, maybe high school. I mean, I just don't think young kids should be learning about sex from our teachers. I just don't think that's proper.
Well, I mean, that's not CRT. That's not race related. That's completely
I'm just
different.
That in there,
But like for example, I mean, I went to a Jewish day school, so fine. I mean, I learned about the Holocaust in my Jewish day school, like. I remember watching a video about it in 2nd or 3rd grade. Like, I was not, like, ruined by this, by learning about the fact that this factual thing happened. And I remember it. I remember watching the videos because I remember one of my 2nd grade teachers was a survivor of the Holocaust, and she couldn't watch it with us because it was very triggering to her.
I actually was taught by I'm gonna be honest with you. This could be very your audience may reflect negatively about this, but I've actually listened to Holocaust survivors. I actually tried to get one on my podcast show, but she was too old at the time. That said, a lot of the things that were taught about the Holocaust were actually false. The reason why a lot of the Holocaust prisoners were starving to death was because of the Allied bombs that were being dropped. And in fact, that's why they went 9 months without supplies and food and were nearly starved to death. And it could the prisons that they were being held in, and there were prisons that Jews were being held in, but the prisons were not as harsh as Schindler's List movies and such as that portrayed them to be. That's what I was told, and that's the God's honest truth.
Maybe you were told that, but I have a feeling that perhaps that person was dealt a little bit of gaslighting as well from the individual that kept her in.
It was a man and a woman. He had the numbers tattooed on his arm,
I'm sure he did, and I'm sure they did, and I can't. Two people are not. Talking to two people is not going to make me believe that the numbers are inflated. So no, but the thing is that me learning.
You know as well as I do, murders did happen, yes, and harsh treatment did happen. Of course, it happens in American prisons today.
But me learning about the Holocaust and seeing videos of the Holocaust and what happened in 2nd or 3rd grade did not cause me to hate all Germans. It did not cause me to. It just caused me to learn. This is something that happened in history. So teaching that there were people who did these things who happened to be white, showing this person here did this thing and showing a picture of him. Oh, it's a white guy. It's not going to make white people feel guilty for being white. It's not going to make black people hate white people for being white. It's going to teach a lesson about what happened in the history of this country. And if you don't learn about it, you're gonna lead to a problematic place. And
I'm reading your chat room there. I just actually read that. Actually, Schindler's List was not actually based on a true story. You need to do your research on that one. It was not. actually. He was an actual person, but the movie was not based on a true story. So that's totally false. I mean, a good documentary for your viewers it's a 12-hour documentary, and I challenge anyone to watch it, and with an open mind. It's called Europa, the Last Battle. I don't know if you ever heard of it. And watch that documentary, Europa, the Last Battle. It's 12 hours long, and it gives you references and links that you could do your own research. It's a 12-hour documentary. It's not one-sided. It just tells you the truth about what's happened in history. And believe me, it's eye-opening, and you'll learn a lot. Trust me. I mean, and like I said, you could do your own research. But you did say something very valuable earlier. Some people are not good researchers, and they don't do valuable research, and they come to their own conclusions that are wrong conclusions. So that's why we do have to value teachers. But you have to also value the point that people can make their own decisions and say, hey, go out there, we're free. You have to make your own conclusions. You can only give them the information. What you do with it is up to you.
Well, I used to have a teacher that say, I can teach you, I can't learn you. But
there you go.
And I agree with him on that fact, is that the fact that you can give people information and then they can do with that information what they want. But my problem with conservatism often is that, especially when they're trying to misuse the CRT label to fight learning facts about our history, is that they don't want even the facts being taught. So let the facts be taught, and let conversations happen, and let people let people learn the real history, which there are some bad things in our history. I mean, there are some of our founders did some really shitty things, and it's okay. It's not unpatriotic to look at the good and the bad. You can't just ignore, if you ignore the bads in history, the ills of history, you just doom yourself to repeat it.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's like the picture of Andrew Jackson. It was in the Guilford County Courthouse. Andrew Jackson was one of the greatest presidents, I think, of all time. The only president that paid down the U.S. debt. That's the only president that brought it down to zero, Andrew Jackson. And his campaign slogan was "No Bank." And the bankers tried to assassinate him. They paid the Wilkes Booth guy to come over. The revolvers jammed, which was a miracle. I don't know how. And he retired his Virginia home. That he took pride in that he had campaigned no bank, because he believed in the national banks were a sin and that they would destroy us. And he called them generation of vipers. And he routed them out. And Andrew Jackson, I believe, was a hero as an American president. And they took down his picture in the Guilford County Courthouse because it offended people. I mean, we can't have that in America. That's wrong. I just think that's so wrong. So if not me, but say people that are racist and prejudiced, that say they don't like a picture of Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King that offends them. So we're going to take down his picture too? I mean, what are we going to do? We're going to appease everybody because they're offended? We can't ignore, like you said, we can't ignore our history. And what your opinions and conclusions come from history, that's fine. But what are the facts, though? We have to come to factual conclusions. We have to learn from history. And if we don't learn from history, then what is it? I think you said it, we're destined to repeat it. So, what are we going to do? We can't rule upon emotion. We can't think upon emotion and believe upon emotions because they're powerful.
No, we should govern with facts, logic, and reason. But that
That's
includes.
Right. That's right.
You can't rule by facts, logic, and reason by leaving out the facts. And one of the facts, according to Britannica.com, Neely's best-known work, Schindler's Ark, also published as Schindler's List, the film in 1993, tells the true story of Oskar Schindler, a German industrialist who saved more than 1,300 Jews from the Nazis. So, there you go.
You claim that that's true, but the depiction in the film itself, I said he was a real person, but the film itself is not a depiction. You got to remember, how do they do these films? It says based on a true story, or based on the facts, or a true story. They have different ways of narrating it, and it's not 100% accurate in a true story of what happened during those times. It's a theory of Hollywood. Schindler was a real person. I did say that, but it's not.
Schindler was a real person, but that's the point, though, is that yeah, they made an artistic piece of work based off of a book that was based off of a real person who did save 1,300 Jews. And so, but when you say things, this is the thing, when you say things like Schindler's List wasn't real, it's gonna it comes
wasn't well,
it comes
can't
across
be real
as
if you dramatize it. If you're dramatizing a movie and art is not real. It's an emotional tool that dramatizes a picture of what you see and what you feel. And that's why art. You know, I dated a girl that was an artist, and we used to go back and forth all the time because she was a liberal, and I'm a conservative. So, and art is that liberal expression.
How long was that relationship?
And that's what Hollywood is. You know, and I just don't think that's a real depiction of Hollywood is not telling the truth about Schindler. He slept with all these women and his wife, and then he had this one accountant that did all his numbers for him, and and at the end he gave him a ring, and it's all emotional. Everybody's crying, and he's going to be hunted down. He lets everybody go at the end. Come on, that's not what happened. That's not real life. But was he a real person? Yes. Did he help 1,300 people? Yes. But that's not what happened and how it happened. So we're getting the wrong impression of what really happened and the true history of what happened. It's great for entertainment, but that's how we got to look at it, as entertainment. That's what I meant by that. So but I see your logic of what you're saying, how people can conceive or perceive what I'm saying, and then come to their own conclusion that what I may believe is against what we're ideals and what we should be believing. I get that. But again, maybe we should stop analyzing each other and start looking at what's going on and fixing the problems together instead of looking at each other and examining each other and, like I said in the beginning, right versus left.
Right, but I think in order for people to get together and work together and solve the actual issues that we can all agree on, it kind of we have to. Part of it includes you're worried about, people, do we determine whether or not we offend each other or not? And we have two callers on the line, so hold on, callers. I see you. I was trying to look up some other stuff, but you got to understand that when you say things, and you say a lot of things that I've heard from a lot of people before, and a lot of the people who have said those other things that you say before come across as a non-starter almost, like. It's the same old that we hear from a lot of people who are conspiracy theorists, and maybe you believe in what those things say, but your messaging, I think, needs to be better if you're going to get people to want to come aboard and say, okay, well, let's have a conversation about it.
Okay. I'll take that constructive consideration.
So, like, for example, when you say when you come across and just start off by saying Schindler's List wasn't real, you're going to get people in the chat room just going down the thing and just not wanting to listen to anything else you had to say, and they're not going to care that you say, oh well, maybe he was a real person, maybe he did save the people, but because you're starting off from a point that's going to piss people off, and while. But
sometimes pissing people off is a good thing, though.
It depends on who that. But if you're trying to work together with the people, and really wanting to work together with those people to get things done, it's probably best to not start off by pissing those people off. It's probably and I just ask like I would behoove you to say, like, there are other people. Bringing It Boy is a former caller of mine. I don't know where he's been. Conservative guy out in California, and he would correct me on sometimes, and I've changed my wording, or tried to change my wording based on what he said. Well, I would be like, instead of saying all conservatives, I'll say conservatives who push for this anti-CRT stuff, or I'll say many conservatives. Or if I'm criticizing the Republicans who are elected officials, I make sure to say elected Republicans instead of just saying Republicans, so that I'm more clear as to who I'm being critical of, as to make sure that I'm very, very clear and concise about who I'm talking about. Therefore, I'm not necessarily just throwing out the baby with the bathwater when I'm like, these Republicans suck. If I say that, then all the Republicans are going to go.
Well, you're never going to convince all the people.
Right? No, I'm never going to convince all the people. But if I'm going to say, but if I start off by saying these Republican elected officials suck because of, then I'm not going to. Then the voters are not going to be like, oh, well, I'm not going to listen to Dan anymore because I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about these elected officials. So my suggestion.
I think we jumped all over the board here tonight on subjects.
We did, but my suggestion would be like, try and look at this. Take some of the things that I said, like, for example, the using of George Soros and globalists and stuff like that, and maybe think of that. Maybe there's other ways to make the same argument without using the language of people who are anti-Semitic. And if you do that, you might have more people willing to debate and converse with you, because then they're going to be less concerned of the whole, oh, this guy's just an anti-Semite, because you're using the same things that I've heard from anti-Semites for years. And then they might say, okay, well, let me listen to you, because you're not blaming these things that are typically used by anti-Semites. So anyway, let me go ahead. Let me put you on hold again. I'm probably going to end soon anyway. I do want to get to the final two callers and just let them have their 2 bits. If there's a reason to bring you back, sure, fine. But we'll see.
All right, man.
Thank you for calling in. Let's see. You've been waiting longer, so I don't know which one you are. I'm just letting you on. Hey, Bringing It Boy. Hey.
I don't know who.
Hey. Did you want to come on, caller?
Who are you talking to?
Area code 209. You.
Me?
Yes.
Hello. Hi, I'm Elizabeth. Hi, Liberal Dan.
Hey, Elizabeth. How's it going today?
Oh, all right. I'm listening to this conversation, and I'm not going to get all. I'm just saying, there's a lot of people who spout these conservative views. I'm not so sure exactly what they're conservative about on the one hand. I haven't heard anything about conserving the rule of law, the Constitution. I hear a lot of originalist talk about the Constitution, which is a load of crap.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go originalist, you're going back to 1789, and you're going back to before the Bill of Rights was added, because that was the first change that was actually made, was called the amendments. And then also, if you go into like reading something like the Wannsee Protocols, there's a really great reference to Yale Library has a wonderful reference of it's called the Avalon Project. It's primary source documents. You want to read the plan to kill 11 million Jewish people across Europe, and read Hitler's worldview. There's plenty of information out there, and a lot of liberals are either have read it as well as conservatives. My question is, on what level is it okay to dehumanize anyone else for whatever reason if you're leaning toward separating out one human out of the crowd of humans? You're trying to isolate that person.
Right.
It's wrong. And the minute and any kind of organization, institution, anything that does that, that's when you got to go, wait. I mean, I can see, be discriminate against perverts or something, but
hey, now I'm sure there are
I
lots of perverts in the chat room who are perverts in a legal way. So.
Yeah. The point being is that, discriminating against people, it's clear if you read the rise of these types of leaders and the rise of this type of thinking. I mean, there's a marriage between the anti-Semitism of Hitler and the anti-Semitism of Iran.
Right.
And of bin Laden. You see, there was a big marriage right there. A lot of people don't realize that. There's a former Nazi in Switzerland that was, had a picture of bin Laden on his wall. I mean, just thought he was all that in a bag of chips, and really thought the Iranians had the great idea. Now, this is hate. For whatever form it takes, it's hate. Right. And it needs to stop. It needs to be taken out of the leadership position.
Right.
That's just my
unfortunately, unfortunately, the Speaker of the House, McCarthy, is beholden to a lot of the people who promote the hate, especially one Marjorie Taylor Greene, who he is reported to have said that he'll never give up on her or something like that, almost like a love letter, because of how she had his back or whatever. Like the Jewish space laser lady, is the one that he's gonna he's gonna hold up on high. No, it's ridiculous. That just ruins anything. Any attempt. Yeah.
She needs to have a nice little field trip over to Dachau or one of these bad, one of these former camps, and realize that also Hitler didn't start with the Jewish people. He started with the infirm,
right?
They're mentally disabled, the people that were unable to work for the country. And so anyway, I don't want to keep, I had to respond.
I appreciate it.
This is just, yeah. Okay, Liberal Dan, I'm going to let you go, and thank you very much for letting me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. You have a good rest of your
All
night.
right, dear.
You too. Bye.
All right, you too. Thank you.
All right. We also have finally area code 708 holding for 11 minutes. Hey, who's this?
This is Bill Deacon, Liberal Dan. How are you?
Hey, Bill. How's it going?
I just wanted to ask one question. Why is it okay for his religious beliefs to be taught in our public schools?
Let's see. You still on, right? Can you answer that question?
I'm still here.
Okay. Why is it okay for Christian religious beliefs to be taught in public schools?
Well, I believe today they're not. But since we've removed prayer from our schools, when did we remove it? In the 50s? 1954, was it? Since we removed prayer, morning prayer. I'm not sure on the exact year. But since we have removed prayer from school, our schools have actually gone downhill. So why is it okay? Again, the founding of our country, our republic, God.
But that's causation and correlation, isn't it?
Don't give me the separation of church and state, because that's not what separation of church and state was all about. It was about the government not being involved in the church, not the church not being involved in the government. Actually, they held Sunday worship at the Capitol building.
Isn't freedom of religion freedom of all religion?
Sure, you're able to express yourself and believe in what you want to believe in, but but that doesn't mean that that's what our principles and foundations is to be taught.
So in Dearborn, Michigan, wait, let me interrupt. In Dearborn, Michigan, where there's a very large Muslim population, there would be no problem if they had the 5 prayers a day in the schools, if they led the Muslim prayers 5 times a day.
No, we're not going to have Muslim prayers in our schools, our courthouses. We're Jesus Christ, and that is what our country is founded upon.
Dad, then there you go. That's not freedom of religion.
We've been rejecting Christ now for a long time in this country. Do you see where we're going? Do you like it? You like what your country's turned into right now? Do you like it?
So let me make a more tame thing. In Pikesville, Maryland, a suburb of Baltimore, Maryland, the school is about 98% Jewish. So if they didn't start with Christian prayer, if they started with Jewish prayer, would that be okay?
If that's what the school board voted upon, and it was 98%, I don't see. Where was this school at? I'd have to look that up.
It's 90-something%. Pikesville, Maryland, has a very high Jewish population, but it's not a table with nothing. It's in a county that's probably mostly Christian. But there's one particular
But we're not
school.
a country. This is America. We're not a country where you get to come over here and establish your belief and press it upon our foundations and beliefs in our system of government. Our Christian...
Go ahead. It's America.
That same thing applies. America. That same thing should apply to everybody, including Christians.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's not America.
Well, then, again, do you like... We've been rejecting God for a while now in this country. Do you like what your country is doing right now?
Some people don't believe in it.
Who doesn't believe in it? Who doesn't believe in it?
There are people who don't believe in God, and they have the right to.
That's right. You do. You do. But you don't get to push that as policy and then create policy and operate government according to your belief.
Either. You don't.
Yes, we do.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
You don't get to establish that establishes a state religion. Which is against the Constitution.
Does it say that you get to tell us our religious beliefs? Where?
No, I don't get to tell you religious beliefs. But since we've taken prayer out of schools, where have we gone as a country? We've gone downhill. So you want to keep going this way?
But that's correlation and causation.
If you want to keep if you want to keep rejecting Christ, you have at it. But you're going to get what you're getting. You know.
It's got nothing to do with me. This has everything to do with you.
No, it doesn't. It has everything to do with this country. It has nothing to do with me. I accept Jesus Christ, and I believe in Jesus Christ, and I believe and I know where I'm going when I die. I know where this country's heading.
Because you accepted it, and anybody who doesn't, this is the reason why our country is failing, and that's
right.
wrong. Because God doesn't have anything.
Show me where in the world. Show me where
God
in the world.
did not put Joe Biden in the office or Donald Trump in the office. The people did.
They did.
They
did.
did.
Who put what? What'd you say? Who put Biden in office? The people did.
Yeah, the people did. Yes. Remember the 2020 election? Or are you going to sit there and say it was
a fraud?
Robbed?
It was robbed. It was a fraud.
It was stolen.
The elections have been rigged and engineered since Nixon.
And every time one of your candidates
So that means
loses,
that
it's
Trump's
gonna
election
be
was
rigged
and
robbed and stolen.
Probably. They've been screwing with the elections for quite some time now. That's a proven fact.
Right. Even 2015.
Well, what proof do you need? What proof do you need to know? The ballot harvesting, the stuffing of the ballot boxes. What proof do you need? We got visual camera evidence of people doing this.
Yeah.
What more proof do you need, man? I mean, I just don't understand.
How about 9-0? How about the Supreme Court? How about all your court cases that got thrown out? What more proof do you need?
What cases? What cases?
Get over it.
What cases? We're not going to get over anything. First of all, again, we're having an irrational discussion here because, again, the Constitution and the Republic has been usurped by the corporation. I believe we started out this conversation. And in order to restore the Republic, we have to have an honest discussion about our history. Do you understand the Act of 1871, the Organic Act?
You don't want an honest
discussion. Do you understand the Emergency Powers Act of 1933?
You want it your way. That's what you want.
What way do I want?
You want everything you just said. It's not okay for Muslims to do this. It's not okay for Jews to do that. It's not okay but it's okay for Christians. And not
so what do I do? What do I do? Our country was founded upon this. So I'm supposed to pack up my bags and surrender my country to you and to what you believe?
Where were your ancestors born?
My ancestors, where were they born?
Yeah.
The European nations, Germany, England.
Okay.
Why?
Did they migrate to this country?
Sure.
Okay, then. So why is it not okay for other people to migrate to this country?
I never said it wasn't okay for people. Where did you get that in the conversation?
You want closed borders.
I didn't say I want closed borders. I said I want secured borders. I said there's nothing wrong with legal immigration. I said illegal immigration. We do not have secure borders right now. Our borders are not secure. You have people illegally crossing.
Borders.
What's that?
You know what? Listen. Back when I graduated from boot camp in 1992, my uncle was TAD, temporary assigned duty, to the Border Patrol. That was in 1992. You know what he told me during the Trump administration, and he also told me during the Biden administration, along with the last administrations, the border's been the same since then. Nothing's changed because all you guys want to do is tell everybody that it's open, but
Trump built how many miles of wall? What do you mean nothing's changed?
It's not a wall. That was not a wall, and now you're telling me because Trump's
so he didn't build any wall, you're saying?
Anymore.
He didn't build no wall?
No.
Wow,
no.
Okay. I have to look up that one there. That's the first I heard of that.
Already existing, and now you're telling me because he's not president, the wall doesn't work anymore, right? Right?
What do you mean that the wall doesn't work anymore? Biden has reversed so many policies and orders of Donald Trump. Again, I asked the audience. Well, hang on. I asked a very important question.
Biden has turned away more people than the Trump administration did. He
has. You got the numbers on that? That's interesting. I don't think so. I think more people have attempted to cross during the Biden administration than the Trump administration. But again,
if they attempted to cross and they're turned away, right. That's not those aren't mutually exclusive. Try to cross and turn away are not mutually exclusive.
You to listen to that.
I've spoken with people on the border firsthand. I've interviewed people on the border.
No, you have not.
Yeah.
No, you have not.
How are you going to tell me what I haven't done? How are you going to tell me I haven't interviewed people? I have archived shows on the internet right now. I do a podcast show. I have interviewed border agents.
Great. And I'm calling in on a phone call to tell you that the people. Okay, let me rephrase that. Possibly the people you have interviewed are the ones that are pro your opinion.
And maybe the people that you're speaking to are pro your opinion.
Okay, so those are the people.
Now, where do we go from there?
Right?
Where do we go now? What's the facts?
Well, we go from the fact that I asked you a question and you can't even get past that.
What
You
question
want
did you ask
everybody
me?
to-
What question? Go ahead. Repeat the question, please. I'll answer your question. What question?
Is it okay for your religious beliefs to be taught in our public schools? Why?
Yes, it's okay for my beliefs to be taught in our. I believe we should be teaching that in our schools. We should get back to morning prayer in our schools, and because
Why?
that is the foundations of what this country was founded upon, and what my ancestors and the pilgrims first came here and were believed, and that was what made our country great.
Should we go back to burning witches too?
Burning witches.
Yeah.
What's that got to do with this? With what the question you just asked me?
Because
what
that's what people
anything?
believed, and that's what the so-called Christians
Of course,
believed.
there were bad people back then that did horrible things. Of course, there were people that had slaves that were wrong. Of course, we sinned back then. We're not a perfect country, but the founders wrote a great document, the second greatest document other than the Bible, that we can correct it. It gave us the tools to correct it.
But you don't want us teaching about that. You don't want us teaching about the negatives. You want us teaching only the good, the frou-frou stuff. No,
I never said that. I never said that, but I don't want us teaching about it. But I don't think we should be guilted. I don't have to be ashamed.
But nobody,
of our
but again,
past.
nobody is guilting anybody into it. But the thing is that there are a lot of conservatives who are making this argument specifically are saying that simply by teaching these things that we're somehow being unpatriotic, that simply by teaching these things that we're being anti-American, that we're speaking ill of the founding fathers and making people feel guilty for their race. And it's not true. You're helping to perpetuate that, to be frank, line of bullshit by jumping on that bandwagon. And maybe it helps you in the polls in your district that you live in. I don't know. And I ran for office too. I also lost. And my thing was I wasn't about to just say what
I'll
needed
be honest
to be...
with you, Dan. I believe in a lot of the liberal policies. I believe in it, especially when it comes to government spending and whatnot. I don't believe in the conservative values of cutting Medicaid and cutting Social Security and then giving tax breaks to the rich. I don't believe in that. You'd be actually shocked at a lot of things I do believe in. However, the moral values and the moral compass of our country, and some of the things like the abortion issue that you and I had a heated topic about that I feel very strongly against, and I believe the crime bills that the Democrats have proposed, I'm against.
You don't want the government involved in day-to-day operations, but it's okay for you to tell a woman what to do with her body. Why?
I'm not telling. No. It's okay for me to protect an unborn child. That's what it is.
Why?
Not okay. Let's look at it from that angle. Because that child needs a voice. That is a human life. That is a spirit. That is a soul.
Are you going to take care of that child?
It doesn't make a difference who's going to take care of that child. It doesn't make a difference.
It does make a difference.
Why?
It does make a difference.
Why? We're a country with $160 trillion worth of wealth. We're only $30 trillion in debt.
And every time anything is suggested that we increase Medicaid, that we increase CHIP, that we increase funding to help, people who want to raise a kid, but who would otherwise but most of the people who are on your side of the aisle don't, and most of the elected officials who are on your side of the aisle don't. So therefore, you're creating an untenable situation where maybe there are people who are pregnant.
I disagree with them.
Maybe there are people who are pregnant who choose abortion who would otherwise raise their kid if they felt that they could financially do so. But they can't.
Well, then that's a mistake that we have to correct in our society, and because that's wrong. Because if a woman's going to abort a baby because she thinks she can't afford it, then that's wrong thinking. And I believe that there should be assistance out there to help and assist with that.
But there's not.
Okay.
But there's not. So it's kind of hard to blame the person. But
let's not blame the child either. Let's not blame the child. An innocent life has more voice and say than the person that's trying to take that life. I mean, come on.
But you are also somebody who feels that prayer should be taught in schools, that prayer should be led in schools, and that Christian beliefs should be taught in schools. But again,
I believe it should, but constitutionally, you're right. According to the Constitution, it shouldn't.
Okay.
You know, so it's a constitutional question. But my personal belief is I think it should. But my personal beliefs are, you know, that again, that's where we have a republic, and that's why we have a government to vote on these things.
Can I say another?
Go ahead, say one more thing. I have another caller that wants to come on too.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So I say one more thing. Okay.
It's Elizabeth again.
The conservatives pick on the LGBTQ community quite often. Why are they less human than anybody else who is on this earth?
They have every right to human rights. I never said they were less human.
No. I'm not asking you. You let me finish. You said it's okay for them to do what they want to do in the privacy of their own home, but it's not okay for them to do it in public. But what about the fact that why is it okay for a man and a woman to engage in relations in public and not anybody else?
What kind of relations are you talking about? It's not okay for a man and a woman to have sex on the middle of the street? No.
Holding hands.
Holding hands and kissing. Come on, we're playing tit for tat. How many times do you see that in society? I mean, come on.
I kiss my wife in public all the time.
Maybe, you know,
I kiss my wife in public all the time. I love my wife, and I love showing my wife affection.
I see it all the time.
And I think,
well, that's a natural expression between a man and a woman.
Why?
And so,
a man and a woman
it's also
not natural.
Why?
Why?
Because it's common sense. Do you see a male dog screwing another male dog? No.
Yes, I have seen that actually. It's rare, but you see it.
You can't reproduce that way, can you?
No, but not all relationships are there for people to reproduce. There are plenty of marriages and people who reproduction is not a requirement of marriage or coupling.
We're trying to supersede God again. We're trying to be our own people and saying, I want to feel how I want to feel, and I'm going to do what I want to do.
Belief. Again, your religious beliefs.
But that should be between God. That should be between that person's deity and that person. The government should play no role in that.
So let's have a society.
Government should play
let's
zero
have a society
role in that.
Where men are. Well, let's do that. Let's have a society where we have men kissing men, parading around the streets. Let's have Sodom and Gomorrah. Let's have Mardi Gras in every city across America. Do you like that? Is that what we really want? Is that what you want? A country like that?
Well, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah didn't Lot offer up his? Didn't the people of Sodom and Gomorrah want to rape the angels? So instead, he offered his daughters up for them to rape instead. I mean, it's not the best story out there to try and, you know.
Well, in the end, God destroys them both anyway. So you know.
Liberal Dan.
So do you want to be destroyed?
I'm let you have your other caller on because I'm tired of beating a dead horse.
All right. Well, thank you very much for calling. I appreciate you for calling in. Thank you so much. It's been a good, lively one. We're going to bring Elizabeth back on. Thank you, Elizabeth, for calling back.
I just don't think God needs or wants political power.
You don't think You don't think you said God wants political power?
No, does not want political power, and he doesn't need your help judging people.
To paraphrase,
where does it say that in the Bible?
To paraphrase Star Trek 5,
God's all powerful.
To bring
he doesn't need your help, and he says, "Judge not, lest you be judged."
To bring back the nerdy. Wait.
Won't we judge even the saints of the world?
To bring back the, I judge the Saints all the time, but that's because I live in New Orleans and they're our football team. But anyway, to bring back the nerdiness of it, to paraphrase Star Trek 5, what does God need with the government? Like, God doesn't need government. God has a certain set of rules that God set out, and you're a Christian, so you follow those rules, and I'm a Jew, and if I don't follow those rules, and if it causes me to not have a place in the world to come, so be it. You know, if you're a Christian and you confess all your sins.
One of the temptations of Christ. One of the temptations of Christ was for political power. One of the temptations for Christ was political power. He rejected it. There's no political power that God needs.
There's no political power that God needs. I don't understand what you're referencing to or what you're trying to get at here. I don't get it.
Christianity. I'm referencing Christianity. God is all powerful. He doesn't need political power.
God doesn't. You're right. God is God. He's everything. He doesn't need anything. You're absolutely right.
He doesn't need you to save the babies. He doesn't need anybody. He needs us to love one another unconditionally, as he showed his son. He showed his son out
There's
there
more
loving
to it than that.
unconditionally.
There's more to it than that. There's other rules to the Bible too, and there's other commandments, and there's more
and
to the
through
story.
Christ,
But
and through Christ and His love, we are saved.
my
Yes.
my Jewish person understanding of Christianity is there are only 2 commandments, right? For Christianity,
Love thy neighbor as you
love your neighbors,
yourself.
love yourself, and to believe in Jesus Christ, right?
Sell my script in person, buy a sword, right? The Luke said, right? So what's that mean? Again, there's more. There's 4 gospels.
Swords into plowshares.
Well, what are you trying to get? What's your point, though? I don't understand what you're trying to say. Because God didn't come to bring peace. God's not coming to bring peace. He's coming to destroy. Next time when Jesus comes, He's coming to destroy. And okay, so that's what he's not coming back as the Lamb of God. He's coming back as a lion, and He's angry. Okay, so if you want to keep going down this path, then by all means, I say let's do it. Because more we keep going down this way, the more the Lord's coming back quicker. I mean, you can't deny prophecy being fulfilled. You can't deny it.
Well, see, here's the thing, though. I used to listen to
Christ coming back.
I used to listen to.
Wait. That. I the sadness that the hateful people of this earth are bringing, and that you haven't figured it out. You don't judge others. You just love others. Let God do the judging. That's my point.
Well, here's the thing. I used to listen to the show. And it was a very late night show. It was a very evangelical type Christian person. And he would cite something from the scripture. I think it might have been Revelations. I don't remember exactly. It's been a while. Again, I'm Jewish, so maybe I'm hearing it wrong or whatever. But it was like 1,000 people will die on my right and 10,000 people will die on my left. But if I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior and repent for my sins or whatever, I will have a place in heaven or whatever. So let's just ignore So let's just ignore the 1,000 people on the right and only look at the 10,000 people on the left. So that means 1 out of every 10,000 people are going to be saved according to that, which means that if there's 8 billion people, that means that only 800,000 people are going to be saved. So you need about 7,200 million sinners out there in order for the prophecy to become true. So shouldn't you want there to be more sin out there?
Well, again, Jesus' concern becomes apparent when He says in John 7:24, do not judge according to appearance, but judge with righteous judgment. This shows that Jesus wants us to judge, but we must judge righteously. The law of Moses says, in righteousness you shall judge your neighbor. Leviticus 19:16. So I don't know where you're getting this.
But I thought Jesus died
we're not allowed to judge.
I thought Jesus fulfilled the laws, and therefore there are no more. The 613 commandments of the Torah are no longer in force because Jesus died and fulfilled the law. Again, my understanding.
Well, He did fulfill the law, but you have to rightly divide the word also. And you have to when you compare Scripture with Scripture.
Rightly divide the word.
What? Excuse me.
Rightly divide the word.
I do it every day. Rightly divide the word, comparing Scripture with Scripture. 2 Timothy. I mean, so 2
Timothy 3 and 4 are very, very good examples.
I think Acts 4 and 5 are. I think Acts 4 and 5 are very telling too of many things that often conservative Christians don't follow, where they cherry pick what they want to believe from their religion. I mean, Acts 4 and 5 specifically states that you're supposed to, when you sell your property, and you're supposed to give all of the proceeds to be distributed amongst the poor, so that nobody has any needs. And in Acts 5, at the beginning of it, you see a couple who bring in and who lie about the amount that their property sold for, and so they only put a portion of it at the feet, keeping some for themselves. And when they question him on it and they catch him in the lie, he dies, and then the wife comes in, and the wife also colludes to lie about how much the property was sold for, and the wife dies too, which pretty much tells me that the Bible is saying that if you don't redistribute all your wealth to all the people who need, you're going to die.
This judging thing is heretical. In some ways, these statements reflect the ethic of our culture. Judging is wrong, except when it's not. Apparently, it's wrong to judge someone's sexual behavior, for example, but perfectly legitimate to judge someone for wearing our fur or emitting too much carbon, right? Yet we
What do you
judge
do
all the
for the
time,
least
don't we?
among
How
us?
could anyone hire a babysitter without judging? We judge every day. What are you talking about?
What you do for the least among you do for Christ. What you do for the least among us. If you're caring for the poor and you're dealing with the things that are normal, like dealing with the fact that we do have poverty, we do have abuses of power, we do have all kinds of weird things happening in our society. You got to approach it with love and understanding and acceptance of others. Can't be out there just judging people and saying, "Oh, they're gay or they're a Jew or they're this or that." That's just like saying one human being has supremacy over another human being, and that's just that's not how it's supposed to be.
Well, in 1 Corinthians 6:2-3, the Apostle Paul says, "The Lord's people will judge the world. How much more the things of this life?" I don't know how else more to say it. You know, so
Yeah.
So what gives?
The
Are
Lord will
Christians supposed to judge or not?
That's the point. The Lord will judge. He'll judge the quick and the dead. But my piece has been said. I appreciate your time. I'm going to let y'all go now.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you again,
Thank you
Elizabeth,
so
for
very
calling
much.
in. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, Dan, and I do appreciate the conversation. I know you're not feeling well, so I mean,
Well,
it's up to you
I think
whenever you wanna
I think
call
I've
it,
battled
brother.
through the coughing fit, so I think I'm probably going to be able to. I'll probably be able to last the last 15 minutes of the hard break that we
Okay.
have. So it is a hard break in 15 minutes, at least on Blog Talk Radio's part. There's somebody said check the news on Matt Gaetz. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff out there about Matt Gaetz. I don't know. I don't know which one they want me to check the rules on Matt or the news on Gaetz as well. I don't know if it's the press secretary thing or the Biden thing or the other thing. Lots of things. Anyway, but at the end of the day, you know, my point in trying to bring, I try and, as someone who was raised Jewish, I try and understand other people's religions and what they believe, simply because of the fact I want to understand why, partially because I want to understand why the people believe the things that they do. But the other part is that I also just think that there's so much, like, I mean, you get, the way to get three opinions is to put Jewish people, two Jewish people in a room discussing religion, and you get three opinions. That's a common joke used amongst Jewish people, but I think the same can probably be applied. You know, you have so many different sects of Christianity. You have Catholicism, you have, you know, Protestantism, you have lots of versions. You have, you know, the evangelical Protestants, non-denominational folks. You have the Baptists, you have the Episcopalians, you have the Anglican Church, you have all sorts of different people, all sorts of people who don't agree on the way that you're supposed to be a good Christian. Lots of people, you know, Catholic people tend to just believe what the priests want to say, don't worry themselves too much about the scripture. Evangelicals more worry themselves about the specific lines in the scripture, and other people have other various combinations, and you have Mormons who are Mormons, and I'll leave it at that. But at the end of the day, that's ultimately my problem with the idea of, well, why Christianity has no purpose if you want your kids, if you want your kids to go to school, like my parents and my grandparents wanted me to go to school and learn about my faith, learn about my religion. So in doing so, they sent me to a Hebrew day school. They didn't send me to a public school. They sent me to a Hebrew day school. And then once that was finished up to 8th grade, and there was no more Hebrew day school for me to go to, even though I went to a public school from that point, I went to an after school where I continued learning, you know, to speak Hebrew. I continued learning, you know, things about, you know, Jewish history, to be more knowledgeable about my faith and my culture. It was never the responsibility of the public school to teach faith, but it should never to teach my faith, but it should never be the responsibility of any public school to teach any faith, because that should be left to the churches. That should be left to the parents. Now, if you want to teach about faiths, if you want to teach about, you know, here are the faiths of the world, there are Christians, there are Muslims, there are Jews, Buddhists, Wiccans, atheists, you know, if you want to teach like a history of religious course, I have no problem with that. You know, that's fine. But we should not be using schools to indoctrinate people on religion. And look, we shouldn't be using schools to indoctrinate people anything else. No school should be teaching people, you know, you should be liberal or you should be conservative. Just, again, but You should teach the facts, and let them come.
Well,
to
yeah. Yeah, I kind of can agree with that. I can come to a compromise with that, even with my Christian beliefs. If that's what the country wanted and voted upon as a republic, I don't have a problem with that. But again, it's again, what was our foundations? Do you like the trends that you see today? There's no way any liberal can honestly sit there and look at themselves in the mirror and say our country is doing fine right now. There's just no way. I mean,
but the reasons
under
that
the
we
current
think the countries
administration,
are not doing fine, or might have some intersection with some of the things you see. Like, we'll see crime as a problem, but we'll see the reasons as to why we think the crime is happening. We may have different beliefs as to why it's happening, and we may look back at history and be like, okay, yeah, that our country may have been founded on certain things, but to some of us, that's just an appeal to tradition. And just because we did things a certain way for a certain amount of time, that doesn't mean it's a good thing to continue doing. So, therefore,
okay. I can also compromise with that also, and that's why we have the greatest document, the Constitution. It gives us the tools to change things. But we lost our way again. We lost our way. We've been hijacked and usurped by the bankers and the money changers and again,
let's say there's
Europa, the last battle,
the bankers and the money changers. People are going to hear you say the bankers and the money changers, and they'll be like, "Oh, there you go, Jews again." So, because
I mean,
that's
Jesus
been
with the money changers, I mean, come on.
That's been how we as Jews have been scapegoated for millennia. Is they're the money changers, they're the bankers, they're the bad.
That's the last thing I really thought of when I said bankers was
right,
Jews,
but right, because you're not Jewish. Because you're not used to. That's the thing. You're not used to hearing these things and seeing them in the negative light in which they are often presented. So when you say it, it doesn't click to you to think, Jews might be leery about what I'm saying because, hey, this hasn't been used against you as an individual to villainize you.
Is it hard for you as a Jew practicing Jew or traditional Jew, because Jew is not a race, obviously, it's a culture.
It's an ethnicity. There's cultural, but whatever. But yeah, as somebody who no Nazi out there cares whether or not I practice or not. They just care that I was born a Jew. So so Nazis and other anti-Semites are gonna treat Judaism as a race, even if it's not. But when we hear those
the
National
Socialist Movement, which obviously clearly is a Nazi organization, is a movement that, of course, that you would say that is something that would have to be. Now, how would you? Obviously, your two factions would be at war. Let's say I'm in the middle here. What do we eliminate them, or do we eliminate you? Why do we have to eliminate anybody? That's what would be my question.
Well, it's the what's the word I'm looking for? It's the paradox of intolerance, or the paradox of tolerance. In order to be a tolerant person, you have to be intolerant of those who are intolerant. And so, which means that
you hate them, right? You dislike them, right? Well, you don't have no place for them.
I have no place for Nazis. Yes, absolutely. I have no place. Okay. I have no place for terrorists. Like I've said many times on the show, the only good terrorist is a dead terrorist. If you want to kill innocent people in to get your way politically, then F you. You should be killed first. If you.
But I don't think the National Socialist Movement is killing any. I mean, there people that have done it. Yes.
I mean. They would. There are people that say, I'm not out there advocating saying we go out and round up all the Nazis and kill them, but I also don't think that we need to be tolerant of them, and I also don't think, if you just look at here's the difference between the two. And I know there are people probably going crazy in the chat. I'm not even looking at that at the moment. Here's the thing. Look at the reasons why we hate each other. So I hate Nazis because Nazis want me dead. Nazis hate me because of how I was born. There's a difference between the two, right? Like, you can see a clear moral difference.
Why do you hate Nazis?
Because they want me dead. Simply because they want me dead because I'm a Jew.
But they believe you want them dead, too. So now we're at an impasse. You see, that's what I'm saying. I'm in the middle now. We're at an impasse. So what are we going to do? Go to war with each other?
Is it a chicken and egg thing? Like, if they wouldn't wish me dead for being Jewish, then I wouldn't want them dead.
Would you forgive them and get along with them then?
There is a guy, I forget what his name is. He's a black man who's gone into white supremacist Klansman type places and has not only made friends with people, but has changed their minds. If somebody was a Nazi and then listened to Liberal Dan radio and said, you know what, Dan, I listened to you. I understand what you believe. I used to be a Nazi, but I'm not anymore. I've reformed my ways. I hate what I used to be. Absolutely, I would forgive them for their horrible past. People can change. Absolutely, people 100% can change. But
okay, now what about the other way around now? What if we reverse it now and you say, what the Jews have done throughout history, what the Nazis preach, just say, I don't know, what do they preach? They control all the money. They've created a lot of the wars. Okay, so you openly, as a Jew, say, man, my people have done this throughout. They look at the wars they've created. They control all the banks, like you said. I said they do. Well,
I didn't say you say they do. I said that other people say that they do.
Okay. Well, let's just hypothetically now. Let's just say that. Okay, you say you're right, Joe. I don't like what my people do. So would that be okay? Again, it has to work both ways. So what do we do?
But no, it doesn't.
Why are you right and why are they right?
Because they are attacking me for an idea for something that I have nothing to do with. I have even if Jews did. There are Jews who are involved in banking. Sure, there are Jews who are lawyers.
Sure.
There are Jews who are
there
are Jews who are doctors. There are good Jews. There are bad Jews. I think Netanyahu is a terrible Jew. I think there are many people who are Jewish in Israel who have forgotten every lesson they should have learned about the Holocaust, and they've embraced hatred in their lives, and they are acting like the Nazis used to do. And I'm very critical of those people. And we have 4 minutes. Okay. We have 4 minutes left, so I'll just have to end it at this. I guess is that they are hating me because of I was born, not because of anything that I specifically did. I am hating them for making the choice to hate me for not doing anything except for being born a certain way. That's the difference. That's why you can't that's why you can't say it's the same on both sides. That's why you can't make that argument. They're hating me for who I am. I'm hating them for who they are just choosing to be. I have no choice in the fact that I was born to a Jewish mother. I have no choice that I was born ethnically Jewish. They have a choice to hate me or not. That's the difference. That's why it's not the same. That's why you can't make that comparison that you just made. And when you do make that comparison that you make, it makes you sound like a hateful person. Now, I'm not going to say that you are a hateful person. Maybe you're trying to be...
I said I was in the middle now. I was using a scenario.
You're saying in the middle of a scenario. So that's what I'm saying. By making that argument, that person in the middle making that argument is making a hateful... It sounded like a hateful person
because I'm just trying to analyze it.
Because you're trying to make the person who's being criticized for being Jewish out to be the same thing as someone who's hating somebody simply for being Jewish.
Okay.
You see that? Does that make sense?
I know, yeah. I know, and I knew if I brought it through from that perspective, that's the angle that some people were going to throw towards me. But again, I started off with saying, let me be in the middle, and let's two sides attack each other.
Devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Right.
But let's see who's right and who's wrong, And you pointed out a very, very apt point. But again, a Nazi's going to come back and say, well, those are our political beliefs. So why do we have to be discriminated against for our political beliefs? I'm just saying that's what they're going to say. A
political belief is a choice. Me being born to a Jewish person is not a political belief. Me being born, I'm just somebody who is existing as somebody who was born to a Jewish mother. And as such, they would vilify me for it. That's the thing. I have a choice. I don't have a choice in who I am. Even if I converted to Catholicism, or if I converted to being evangelical, or I converted to whatever religion they thought was good, they'd still hate me because I was still a bad, horrible, evil Jew, because that's how I was born, and they would still hate me for that. There's nothing I can do to change that. They believe that it's an immutable property of my being that I am Jewish. So therefore, they are making the choice to hate me for that, which is why, again, me hating them for that is nowhere near anywhere similar to me, to them hating me.
Now, where does the Christian come in?
90
Your caller
seconds.
said we're supposed to love everybody. We're not supposed to judge. So now what do? You're judging them, aren't you?
They were saying, the caller, I think it was Elizabeth that was saying that. Elizabeth was saying that as somebody who is a Christian under what Jesus Christ is supposed to do. Of course, I don't believe in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, so therefore it doesn't apply to me. But again, thank you for calling in. We have a minute left.
Yeah, man.
Okay, I'm sorry I had to mute you. That's the end of this week's episode of Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.
Seconds.
I did a 3-hour show despite me thinking that I was not going to do a 3-hour show. But you know what? It is what it is. There you go. And I'm not playing the Trump bit now. But you got 3 hours out of me anyway. I guess I made up for the fact that I was not able to come on for 3 weeks. I'll drink lots of water tonight to try and make up for it. I will be on Twitch tomorrow night, twitch.tv/nerdydan.com. Check that out. After when the end music is playing, I'll go ahead and reshare the links to the Pampered Chef party that I'm having. If you want to help support that, just join the Facebook group to make it look bigger or whatever. Anyway, but if you can't join me on Twitch on Thursday or on Tuesday, join me next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central, Liberal Dan Radio. Talk to the left.
10 seconds.
That's right.